are you?
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call this meeting of the Sterling Heights City Council to order. Please stand with me for the Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing for the invocation. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Dear God, please bless our elected officials. Grant them courage and wisdom to do what is right for all citizens. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Ms. Riska. Can we please have the roll call?
Mayor Taylor?
Here.
Mrs. Sarowski?
Here.
Sarowski?
Present.
Mr. Radke?
Present.
Present.
Here.
Present.
Thank you, Council. We need approval of the agenda.
Mr. Mayor,
Mrs. Koski.
move to approve the agenda.
Support.
Been moved and supported. Is there any discussion? No discussion. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. First item on our agenda tonight is a report from our city manager, Mark Vanderpool. Mr. Vanderpool.
Thank you very much, Mayor. First, I have a couple of housekeeping items. Just a reminder that refuse collection is delayed one day this week, so please keep that in mind. If you have a Friday collection, it will be collected on Saturday. So if you had a collection today, it'll be tomorrow, and so on. In addition, I wanted to remind everyone that the massive water main break up in Port Huron, as you well know, has impacted many communities, including Sterling Heights. Thankfully, we are not under a boil water order, and that's in part because we've been able to maintain our water pressure throughout the city, which we monitor regularly, 24/7. But what that means is we're going to have to continue the outdoor irrigation restriction until September 21st. That will help keep the water pressures high in our city and all the communities that are impacted, frankly. And that will avoid us having to risk a boil water order. So I want to remind the community that the irrigation restriction is still in place and will be until September 21st, which is the new date now, in which the Great Lakes Water Authority expects to have the line fully repaired, fully charged, and everything pressurized. So we'll be back to normal by then. So just a reminder. And thank you so much to the community who's voluntarily complying with the outdoor water restriction. And Mayor, as I've reported on so many times this year, we are giving an update on all of our boards and commissions to highlight all the good work they're doing. And we have a number of boards and commissions that we're going to be highlighting this evening. And if you don't mind, we'd like to start with the Local Development Finance Authority, Economic Development Corporation, the Brownfield Authority, and Corridor Improvement Authority, all under the banner of economic development. We have a lot of economic development activity going on in the city, and it's in part because of these unique organizations and agencies that the City Council has approved over the years. So with us this evening is our Building Services Specialist, Catherine Quell, who's very involved with these boards and commissions, and tonight she'll be providing an overview on each one. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor Taylor, members of the council, Mr. Vanderpool, and Mr. Kachubski. I serve as a liaison to three boards: the Local Development Finance Authority, Economic Development Corporation, Brownfield Development Authority, and the Corridor Improvement Authority. This evening, I'll be presenting an overview of these three boards. The first is the Local Development Finance Authority, also known as the LDFA. The Local Development Finance Authority Board consists of 14 members. 7 members represent the various taxing authorities within the LDFA district: the MEDC, Macomb County, Macomb Community College, Utica Community Schools, and Warren Consolidated Schools. The remaining 7 members have an interest in furthering economic development and growth for the district. Meetings are held on the third Tuesday of each month at 8 a.m. at Velocity. The defined district is between Van Dyke and Mound, from 14 Mile Road to the 18.5-mile roundabout. The area encompasses 6 square miles of the newly named Sterling Innovation District, which is home to approximately 27 million square feet of industrial space and 60,000 jobs. Utilizing tax increment financing, the Local Development Finance Authority assists in the development and redevelopment of industrial property to prevent unemployment and promote economic growth. The LDFA provides development incentives to companies that fall into the following categories: defense, high technology, alternative energy, agricultural processing, and automotive. The state of Michigan designated the city's LDFA as a smart zone. This designation allows the LDFA to operate Velocity, a business incubator. Velocity has provided space, programming, and support to entrepreneurs and growing companies for the past 11 years. The physical space is over 42,000 square feet, consisting of dedicated offices, co-working space, and event space. The robust activity in the building encompasses coaching, entrepreneurial development programs, training, speaker series, and networking. Partnerships include the MEDC, Macomb County, Macomb Community College, Michigan Defense Center, and the Michigan Small Business Development Center. Other programs at Velocity are the Macomb Automation and Robotics Zone, also known as MARS, which develops skills and talent to fuel the next generation workforce, and the International Landing Zone, supporting global companies that are interested in a U.S. presence. Velocity continues to be a catalyst for innovation and growth for manufacturing and technology businesses in Macomb County. Next, we have the Economic Development Corporation Brownfield Redevelopment Authority. The Economic Development Corporation Brownfield Redevelopment Authority Board consists of 8 members. The board meets at 5:30 p.m. on the 4th Monday of the month during an active brownfield redevelopment project. The objectives of the Economic Development Corporation are to alleviate and prevent conditions of unemployment, and to assist and retain local industries and commercial enterprise in order to strengthen and revitalize the economy of this city. The goals of the Brownfield Redevelopment Authority are to clean up environmentally questionable properties, maximize land use in relation to the appropriate zoning district, reduce the blighting influence of underutilized or obsolete properties, create new job opportunities, stimulate new investment in the city by widely using all available resources, and to control urban sprawl by reusing sites with existing infrastructure. The entire city of Sterling Heights is designated as a brownfield redevelopment zone. Having this designation allows private developers an opportunity to take advantage of tax incentives and grant programs to redevelop obsolete properties that may be or appear to be contaminated. Lastly, we have the Corridor Improvement Authority, which is also known as the CIA. The Corridor Improvement Authority Board consists of 5 members. Eligible candidates to the CIA board are individuals with ownership or a business interest located within the district or a resident within a half-mile of the district. The corridor is defined as Van Dyke from the roundabout at 18.5 Mile Road extending to the north city limit and along Utica Road between Van Dyke Avenue and Triangle Drive. The CIA board meets on the second Wednesday of the month at 5:30 p.m. The primary goals for the Corridor Improvement Authority are to enhance the public spaces within the district, to delineate the district by developing a consistent beautification and landscape style along its rights-of-ways, to provide a unified building style through the development and redevelopment of properties within the district, and to spur economic growth and increase property values within the district's borders. The Corridor Improvement Authority adopted a new master plan known as the North Van Dyke Avenue Master Plan. The streetscape design guidelines include select specifications for paving, decorative lighting, site furnishings, and landscaping. The development plan also includes potential facade improvements, access management improvements, property acquisition, floodplain wetland mitigation, park space improvements, general infrastructure improvements, and a business recruitment and retention program. Thank you for allowing me to present this evening. I'm very appreciative to all my boards and would like to thank them, all the board members, for their time and dedication to the city of Sterling Heights.
And Mayor, I just wanted to also thank Catherine Quell for her good work with all these boards. It takes a lot of time and effort to coordinate all their activity, and she, along with Luke Bonner, really do a great job. Economic development doesn't just happen in the city. It takes this concerted effort, and you can see that it pays off in so many projects that are going on. So I also want to thank the mayor and city council for creating these organizations. It takes a lot of planning efforts, years just to create these groups, and then partner with the state and our county partners and others that are involved in all the organizations as well. So moving on, we have another board that we want to highlight this evening, and that is the Sustainability Commission. But before we get started, I wanted to take just a minute, and I'm sure he's going to be upset and maybe embarrassed, but I wanted to highlight the good work of our city planner, Chris McLeod, and I wanted to mention that he is moving on to a new endeavor, which is a great loss for us. But I wanted to thank Chris for his incredible work ethic over his 7 years that he's been here, his high level of professionalism. And I think any developer or anyone in the audience who has dealt with Mr. McLeod knows that professionalism is his guiding principle. And he's really been a valued member of our leadership team ever since he's been here. So he's really left a major mark on our city through our updated master plan, our new landscaping ordinance, our new tree ordinance, and the countless development projects that he and his team have spearheaded and recommended various opinions to the Planning Commission and to the City Council and so on. It wasn't uncommon to get all sorts of messaging from Chris at all hours of the day, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. I don't know that he got much sleep, but he still looks really good. I do want to thank him for his amazing work for the city. And this was my only chance tonight to recognize him. Although he's going to be on the agenda and a couple other items tonight, I won't have a chance to speak. But on behalf of our directors, certainly the mayor and the city council, and your entire team, Chris, I wanted to thank you for all the good work and your exemplary service to the city of Sterling Heights. Thank you. And so now I'm pleased to introduce our city planner, Chris McLeod.
Thank you, Mr. Vanderpool, Mr. Mayor, City Council, for those very kind words. It's not necessary, but very much appreciated. Thank you. It's my honor and privilege to serve the city for the last 7 years. So, and again, I just want to thank City Council for all your support over the years. It's been an incredible journey, and it's sad to leave. But anyway, on to the things in terms of a much brighter note, the City of Sterling Heights Sustainability Commission. I have the honor of serving as the liaison, or have had the honor of serving as the liaison for the Sustainability Commission since their creation. And I want to tell you that I think a lot of people underestimated this commission when it was first created. I think a lot of people said, oh, this is going to be a commission that's going to talk about some feel-good stuff, and we love trees and save the environment and all that kind of good stuff. This commission, I will put up against anyone in terms of their mission and what they accomplish. They are a no-nonsense commission, that is for sure. And I think the one thing that I want to obviously highlight, if I could, before our chairman, Nathan Inks, gets up to speak, is that in their short term or their short time in terms of their existence, they've adopted a master plan that was created all virtually during the COVID pandemic. Got that adopted, brought it before council. And then lo and behold, they submitted it for an award to the State of Michigan Planning Association, and they won Sustainability Plan of the Year. So in their short tenure, they have already made their mark, not only within the city, but also within the state, and the state has recognized their exemplary work. So I wanted to say that, and obviously that plan was created all in-house, no consultants, and it was a Sustainability Commission as a whole that drove that process. So you can all be very proud of the work that they did. And like I said, a lot of times you see a plan go up there to the state and it's a consultant getting the award. This is your commission that you put together obtaining this award all by themselves. So I think that is an incredible accomplishment. So with that, I will turn it over to Nathan Inks, our Sustainability Commission Chair, and he will kind of run you through not only what I just described, but also some of the work that the commission is working on now.
Thank you, Mr. McLeod. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council, Mr. Vanderpool, Mr. Koszybski, and city administration. The Sustainability Commission was formed in 2020, and we began meeting the second half of 2020, going through and developing the sustainability plan. If you can go to the next slide. We adopted the plan in June of 2021 and then presented that to City Council in July. You may recall we had a presentation at City Council in September of 2021. Since then, we have continued working on implementing the plan, going through, and we had gone through the action items in the plan and prioritized the top 15 that we thought were the most important and most significant to implement. We did that at our November 2021 meeting, and then presented those 15 action items at the strategic planning session in early of 2022. Since then, we have been going through as a commission and looking at specifically where the city is at in terms of what the status of those 15 action items is. You know, what have we already accomplished? What do we need to do to begin moving to the next steps? Are these items that the Sustainability Commission can begin working on themselves, or do we need guidance from City Council to see if they want us to pursue these items, or do we need to start talking with other departments or members of city administration? So that's what we've been doing since the last presentation before City Council in September of 2021. The goals of the sustainability plan are based on the sustainability ordinance, and that was created by the City Council. I won't read through all of these, but again, the goals just kind of come from the ordinance that was passed in 2020 that created the commission. As I said before, the plan was adopted in June of 2021, and as Mr. McLeod alluded to, we recently received notification from the Michigan Association of Planning that the Sustainability Commission had the honor of receiving the award for sustainability and resilience, and that will be presented at the annual meeting for the Michigan Association of Planning in October of this year. Just to go through some of the overview of the plan, we based the plan on a number of different items that went into the plan, things like materials from the Environmental Protection Agency, National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, Department of Energy, Great Lakes and Environment. But one of the big outside resources that played a key role in shaping the plan were the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. And on the screen here are the goals that we thought were within the scope of the plan, highlighted in color. The goals that we thought were outside of the scope of the plan are shown in gray. There was a question before about why water was not included, and the UN Sustainable Development Goals for water are for saltwater only. So the Clinton River is included in the life on land portion of the Sustainable Development Goals. The plan is broken down into a number of sections: natural assets, sustainable mobility, sustainable development and land use, environmental stewardship, and then how to implement the plan. And at the beginning of each of those sections, we've highlighted which of the sustainable development goals the commission thought were relevant to that section. Within the sections, there are a number of action items, and before we got to those action items, we provide an explanation of how those action items fit into the city's vision statement and the guiding principles. For each action item, we listed either one or multiple responsible parties. And as I mentioned before, we're going through right now and looking at what the status of the 15 prioritized action items are and determining what next steps need to be taken, which responsible parties the Sustainability Commission or city administration or city council should be reaching out to determine how to move forward with those 15 prioritized action items. Since we adopted the plan, there have been a couple of significant items that the Sustainability Commission has worked on that are outside of our broader work with implementing the plan. The first of those has been the tree preservation ordinance. In 2021, the commission provided a recommendation to City Council regarding a broader set of amendments to the tree preservation ordinance that would provide for more protection of trees, and that was ultimately adopted by City Council. After that, became clear to City Administration and City Council that there were some potential loopholes that were being exploited by property owners regarding landmark trees, so we were tasked with looking at how to shore up those loopholes. And while that was occurring, there was a federal case dealing with tree preservation in the Sixth Circuit that called into question a number of tree preservation ordinances throughout the state and country. And so as we were working on eliminating the loophole regarding landmark trees, one of our tasks was also determining how we could ensure that our tree preservation ordinance would more likely withstand a legal challenge if one were to be brought based on that federal court case. And that was recommended by the Sustainability Commission to Council a couple months ago, and then that is the proposal that you are currently considering tonight. Then the other project that we worked on was the drain stencil project. This was a project that we did jointly with the Arts Commission. We invited high school students to submit stencil designs that would be drawn on stormwater drains to encourage people not to dump and pollute, and remind people that when they dump water into the stormwater drains, that that's ultimately going into our lakes and rivers. So along with the Arts Commission, we selected a winner, and that's shown here. And then we have begun implementing the deployment of those stencils at various drain locations throughout the city with the Department of Public Works. Then our next steps at this point, as I said, we are going through and looking at what the current status of those 15 action items is. We're about 2/5 of the way through that. We've done 2 sections and we have 3 more to go. So we're hoping to get that done by the end of this year and then actually begin implementing some of those action items. We're also working on any other assignments that we might get from City Council or City Administration, similar to what we've done with the tree ordinance. And then earlier this year, the city had allocated money for an electric vehicle charging master plan that's currently in the process of being developed, and it's my understanding that at some point the Sustainability Commission will weigh in on that as a stakeholder in developing the master plan. So that will likely be one of the assignments that we get later this year. With that, I have nothing further. If anybody has any questions, feel free. Otherwise, thank you for the opportunity to present tonight.
Mayor and council, you can see the amazing work that our boards and commissions do. It's one thing to have excellent employees, and they do a great job as well, but to have volunteers and those that are dedicated to doing good work that you've heard tonight really makes our community shine. So that is the end of my city manager's report. I wanted to thank the babies who suffered through my report this evening. I understand why a couple were crying, but that concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vanderpool, and it is nice to see the crying on that side of the table instead of this side. Okay, with that, we'll move on to our next item tonight, which is another exciting night. It's a swearing-in ceremony for the Sterling Heights, for new Sterling Heights police officers. So I'll invite our Sterling Heights Police Chief Dale Dwojikowski up to the podium. Chief.
Mayor Taylor, members of council, Mr. Vanderpool, thank you. It is a great night. It is always awesome to add and hire police officers, because we know in Sterling Heights, when we make a commitment to hire you, they stay for 25 years. We're one of the few agencies in Michigan where that is pretty much gospel. People don't leave our police department, which means you probably pay the right amount of wages and benefits, and you have a great place to work, the working environment. Both of those things have to be lockstep, or people find other positions. And I'm so proud that these two both made that move. Our two new hires actually started on August 22nd. So this is the first city council meeting we can get them on. They actually completed 2 weeks of our orientation, and now they're starting their grueling 17 weeks of FTO process. And with us, we have Officer Ariel Simpson on the left. Ariel has a bachelor's degree in criminal justice from Madonna. She also worked in the Macomb County Sheriff's Department as a dispatcher for 4 years, and we love that because she knows Sterling Heights inside and out. She worked at Comtech, and she knows our city. She knows the dispatch system, and we've hired other dispatchers as well, and they make fantastic police officers. She did 4 years as a dispatcher, 1 year on the road, and now made the move from the Macomb County Sheriff's Department here to Sterling Heights, and we thank you for that. And Officer Stephen Lane. Stephen brings a vast array of experience, 20 years with the Detroit Police Department. A lot of it spent with the Detroit Underwater Recovery Team, and he's been a detective since 2013, working in their Criminal Investigations Unit and Special Victims Unit. So you can see both ends of the spectrum. 20-year vet that has seen it all, done it all in the city of Detroit, and Ariel, who's just started her career about a year on the road, but with a ton of experience here in Macomb County. This is a police chief. This is exactly what I want. It's a great mix of talent, skills, and background. We couldn't be any happier. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and swear you guys in. Raise your right hand, repeat after me. I state your name.
I, Ariel Simpson,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I'll support the Constitution of the United States
I will support the Constitution of the United States
and that of the state of Michigan,
and that of the state of Michigan,
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of police officer
that I will faithfully discharge the duties of a police officer
in and for the city of Sterling Heights,
in and for the city of Sterling Heights,
and that I will strive to maintain the highest standards of that department
and I will strive to maintain the highest standards of this department
to the best of my knowledge and ability.
to the best of my knowledge and ability.
Congratulations. I'm going to have each of them say a few words, but I would like to thank council again for always allowing us to fill these spots. We have hired 50 police officers in 5 years, 77 police officers in 7 years. So to say our department went through a little rebuilding process is an understatement. And we are hiring, and they are applying, and we're getting some of the best in the state of Michigan. We have 124 total police officers. We're one shy. We're supposed to start with 3, but one of our candidates had a little bit of a scheduling issue, so we're going to be doing a one-off hire here in a couple weeks. So we're going to get back up to that 124 as far as patrolmen go. We have 160 sworn here in Sterling Heights. And as you know, after the recession, a lot of communities are still trying to crawl back to where they once were. We are there. I'm very happy that the city council has allowed me to hire. We've actually added 10 police officers over the last 5 years. As you know, a community service unit that we started from scratch. 2 new school resource officers, one at Henry Ford High School, one at Stevenson High School, and the 7 officers we just hired by closing our jail, saving over $700,000, and being able to hire those 7 officers which are on the road and doing community policing. So I thank you so much for your backing and support. And with that, I'll turn the microphone over to Ariel.
Hello, my name is Ariel. I want to thank everybody here, my family, my friends that came to support me here as well. I'm excited to start at this new department. I already feel like I am part of the family, as Sterling is very family-oriented. Thank you so much.
And Stephen, come on up.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, City Council, for this opportunity. Again, my name is Stephen Lane. I do feel like I've come to the right place with Sterling Heights being so community-based with the relationship between the city, with the police, and the community. It's really refreshing, and I look forward to spending many years here doing that community service. And I thank everybody for the opportunity. I would like to thank my father, Gary, for being here. and my girlfriend Jennifer. Unfortunately, my mother couldn't make it this evening. She's not feeling well. But again, thank you for the opportunity.
That concludes my presentation.
Okay, thank you, Chief. Council, any comments? Mrs. Sarowski.
Thank you, Mayor Taylor. So I want to welcome both of you, Ariel and Steve. We welcome you to our community. I'm glad to see that we have a bit of a diversity with male and female at the very least. And so it is wonderful, as the Chief said, to see both ends of the spectrum. Ariel, welcome, and I'm glad to see you're pretty much starting your career with us, and I'm sure you'll enjoy a long career with us. And Steve, interesting that you said that you're seeing the community and how it's a little bit welcoming and very welcoming, but different than what you may have experienced. And I'm glad to see that you highlighted that a little bit. I think that we pride ourselves on being a very welcoming community, especially to our police officers and our firefighters as well, but especially our police officers. I know that I really do have a very strong and open soft spot in my heart for police officers. I think a lot of our residents do as well, and I'm hoping that you will always see that. And I welcome you here for both of you. So thank you. Thank you, Mayor Taylor.
Thank you, Ms. Strowski. Anyone else? Mr. Radke.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to say welcome. Sterling Heights expects a lot from our police officers, but we will give you all the resources you need to keep yourself safe and the residents of Sterling Heights safe. We pride ourselves on running a very good department. It's a high standard. I think you're going to meet that standard, and we're going to be proud to have you for many years. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Radke. Anyone else? If not, thank you both for being here tonight. We appreciate it, and appreciate seeing the support of your family here. As my colleague said, we want to do whatever we can to support our police officers, and I know that our residents support our police department. Our police department has been incredible. It's been a model police department across the state of Michigan and beyond. We are recognized for the safety that we have in the city of Sterling Heights, and it's in large part because of the work of men and women like the two of you, and you're going to continue on a long tradition of excellence here in Sterling Heights. We expect it of you, but we wouldn't have been hiring you if we didn't think that you could meet that. So I wish you good luck. Stay safe out there. Keep us safe. God bless both of you. Thank you for your service to the city of Sterling Heights and beyond. We look forward to having you here for many, many years. Officer Lane, I don't know if you're going to make 25, as the chief said, but you're welcome here as long as you want to be. And like I said, if there's anything that this city council can do for you, please don't hesitate to reach out. I'm sure your union bosses will want you to go through them, of course, but we want to be helpful. We want to accommodate you guys if you need equipment, if you need help, if you need services, whatever you need. You are on the front lines, quite literally here. And, we love to support our police department. Our community loves our police department. So it's a great fit, I think, for both of you and for us. So with that, I will let you guys take off tonight, do whatever you guys need to do. Celebrate. You probably already have. Enjoy your night tonight. And thank you again for your service. One more big round of applause for these two guys. Chief, you're dismissed. All right. With that, we will move on to the next item on our agenda tonight, which is an ordinance introduction. And this is to consider introduction of a map amendment to zoning ordinance number 278 to conditionally rezone property situated on the east side of Van Dyke, north of Plumbrook Road in section 15 from O1 Business and Professional Office District to C3 General Business District, case number PZ22-0004. And we do have a presentation from our city planner. And I do want to just echo the sentiments that Mr. Vanderpool said before. I don't know if you're going to leave before the end of this meeting tonight. I know every one of the members on this council appreciate everything that you've done for the city of Sterling Heights. I've been around for 13 years. I've been blessed to be the mayor for almost the last 8 years. Pretty much my entire time as mayor has been with you, Chris, and the city is I just can't imagine. I mean, it must have been like this in the early days, but we are so busy with development, so many projects going on, so many people wanting to do business here. and the way that you've handled yourself and the way you conduct yourself with the business community, with the residents, with Mr. Vanderpool and his staff, with your staff, and importantly with us and everyone else. I mean, it's been exemplary, and we are going to miss you dearly. And, we thank you for everything that you've done. You're moving on to a great community, in part because they keep taking our employees. But, and in no part due to the leadership in the mayor's office in Rochester Hills. Rochester Hills
They got lucky.
thrives despite Mayor Barnett. And, you don't need to be on camera while I'm saying this, because it's your new boss. All kidding aside, Brian is one of my best friends and one of the best leaders in the state of Michigan. And so you're going to be moving on to a great community. Chris, I'll shut up, but thank you. You've been an absolute pleasure to work with, and I personally appreciate it, and thank you for that. So with that introduction, on to Scooter's Coffee, Mr. McLeod.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Vanderpool, and rest of City Council. No, again, I want to reiterate the fact that it has been my honor and privilege to serve the city. It's a very sad time for me, at least, but obviously, again, and I have a job to do here, so I'm going to try to get through it before I totally break down and make a fool of myself. But as you've noted, Mr. Mayor, this is a request for a conditional rezoning from office professional business district to a general business district. That location is 39900 Van Dyke. The current use is the Blue Ox Credit Union, and this is that south portion of their parking lot that is vastly underutilized. The proposal is for this 675 square foot drive-through coffee shop for basically no indoor seating, but again, just a drive-through order type facility. This is what most of the coffee brands are actually going to. They are improving the site drastically. They're removing some curb cuts from Van Dyke, increasing the landscaping on both sites, or what will become both sites, and then obviously providing us with a new building and again, a vastly underutilized area. Here you can kind of see the zoning configuration. This would provide a continuation of the existing C3 designation on the east side of Van Dyke that carries from just to the north side of the site southward. This is just a very small pocket of O1 that's currently in this particular site. So this would rezone in effect if introduced and ultimately adopted, both the Blue Ox site as well as their parking lot. Here you can see the master plan designation. The master plan designation does call for this the Van Dyke Mixed Use District. So in a lot of instances, we look at the Van Dyke Mixed Use District as bringing in residential and allowing for a mixture of uses, not to be redundant. But it also talks about the revitalization, reutilization of underutilized sites. So this site can be looked at as one of those elements to say that we currently have a site that is underutilized and we're going to try to utilize it. Here you can see, here's the Blue Ox just at the top portion of this picture, this vast parking lot. You can see how well or how much parking that the Blue Ox needs. This was taken during the day, actually. So you can see how utilized that parking lot is. So it's an opportunity to reutilize it. I'm just going to kind of scroll through these pretty quickly because these are all just different variations of, as you can kind of go around the horn or around the screen here to say, here's all the different viewpoints from Blue Ox. And I do want to commend SHTV. They're the ones that provide us with all this great footage. I'll probably spare you the video unless you want to watch it. This is kind of a 360 pan that we also provide for the Planning Commission when they review this. But here's the overall site plan, taking a look at this particular site. So at the top portion of the screen is the existing Blue Ox. They will be providing a revised landscape plan to meet our ordinance requirements and slightly modifying their parking configuration, providing us a little larger green belt, more consistent with what the city's expectations are for our normal green belt provisions. Not fully there, but they're getting closer. And then obviously the bottom portion of the screen is that existing parking lot. Again, they're consolidating driveways. Right now there's 3 for this particular site. They're going down to 2. The main driveway, if you will, that services both the Scooter's Coffee as well as the Blue Ox will be central between the 2. And then there is an existing the drive-through lane on the north end of the Blue Ox will be maintained. But you can see on the bottom portion here, obviously, again, they went above and beyond in terms of the landscaping scheme and then the building there in the central, and then you can see the drive-through lane configuration there. They're also providing cross-access to the site to the south. So again, trying to provide the ultimate potential for maybe eliminating some additional drives as you kind of go southward here, connecting all these different sites, going north and south along Van Dyke. Here you can see the facades. So you got masonry product as well as both masonry products, actually, brick as well as James Hardy type siding, but in a panel configuration for that taupish color that keeps their basic branding. This is just the other facade as well. So this is kind of an overall rendering for what this site would look like. So in terms of the rezoning analysis, again, taking a look at the Van Dyke Mixed Use District, normally we would talk about a variety of uses, not just purely commercial, but again, this provides for a reutilization and reinvestment within the area. The site plan, the applicants did work through the Office of Planning to address a number of different site planning comments. I want to commend them on that as they kind of work through different iterations, and we work with them to try to come as close as we can to the requirements of the zoning ordinance. Existing land use pattern, again, you have a multitude of things here. You got the Blue Ox Credit Union, veterinary clinic, general businesses to the north. You have multiple family to the east, and we'll talk about that in 1 second. And then large-scale commercial and auto dealerships to the west across Van Dyke. Obviously, that's our main dealership corridor. And then a pharmacy use to the south. So the zoning patterns are, again, a kind of a mix here. You got C3 to the north, O1 to the south, to the west across Van Dyke, you have C3, and then to the east, you have multiple family. So one of the variances that they're requesting is a screening requirement to the east. There is a large tree stand, a large greenbelt area that's currently there. So they're not expanding any closer than what's already there with the existing parking lot for the Blue Ox. So they did basically say they would like to maintain that existing greenbelt, that existing amount of vegetation there, rather than basically tearing all that down that's already mature and then putting up a wall and a 10-foot green belt and trees every 30 feet. They felt what was there currently was a much more effective screening mechanism. We do have a requirement in terms of separation between drive-throughs. As most of you are aware, and I've had this conversation, a couple times, I think, up at this podium, but obviously every restaurant type use nowadays has some form of drive-through, whether it's a carry-out window, a drive-through window, whatever the case is. That is just the nature of the beast in today's economy. So ultimately, that's probably something we should look at in our zoning ordinance, but that's for a separate conversation, but that's a request that they're making as well. Separation from residential. Typically, we have a 300-foot separation from a drive-through to a residential. To the east is that multiple family. But again, they're providing a pretty significant buffer in between their subject site as well as the residential there. And again, this is a pretty limited use in terms of size, scale, and operation. And then parking, they are just short a couple parking spots, but they are doing a shared use agreement with the parking spaces and shared access with the parking. So between both sites, there should be more than ample parking for the two uses. So with that being said, I'll be more than glad to answer any questions that the City Council may have.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. McLeod. Is there anyone in the audience who'd like to speak on this item? Mr. Russo?
First of all, I'd like to say something about Chris myself, because I've done a lot of things with Chris. It's a big loss. Probably wouldn't be here tonight if I didn't hear about this. But I got some other things that we're going to talk about too. But I'm going to tell you something. I've dealt with all kinds over the years here, and this guy is like a one of a kind. We are very, very unlucky that he's leaving here. The first one was Vyzenko, and now it's him. So I hope these replacements are as good or better, because it's going to be a hard shoe to fill. Trust me. He's the type of person that you could have went to at any time and asked him anything about what you're thinking of doing, or how you're going to do it, or can I do it, or how can I get this done, or is it allowed, is it not allowed? I mean, it was just unbelievable journey with him. And I really have to say it from my heart that he was a stand-up guy in the position that he was. To this little issue here, though, we had this happen, and Chris knows this also, there was a condo situation with office condo land with the Jimmy John's on 19 Mile that they use part of the other parking lot to accommodate the business that they were putting in. This is the same kind of thing. The problem I kind of have with it is when you share parking lots and it's all right, what happens to this building if the coffee shop goes out and you're stuck? You're stuck with a drive-through only building. So is that part of the plan that if this doesn't make it, and God forbid, I hope they do, but down the road, what happens to this property? Do they get to still share that parking lot to do a different zoning of that, or not so much a zoning, but to put something else that's gonna need the parking? Because you only have the little bit in the back. They did this with the Jimmy John's. I was kind of against that because really that's never been the norm in Sterling Heights. You had to have your parking for your piece of property and that's it, just like I do with my ice cream shop. But that was my only question, Chris. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Russo. Anyone else on this item? If not, council, we need a motion.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Yanez.
resolved to introduce the map amendment to zoning ordinance number 278 to conditionally rezone property situated on the east side of Van Dyke, north of Plumbrook Road in section 15 from 01 Business and Professional Office District to C3 General Business District, case PZ 22-0004, and direct applicant to proceed to finalize a proposed conditional rezoning agreement so the city council can further evaluate the offer of conditional rezoning of the subject property at the September 20th, 2022 regular meeting.
Support.
Been moved and supported. Any discussion, Mr. Yanez?
This is just how things are going to go in the city for, from here on forward. I think we just, had someone come out and speak about what they did with Jimmy John's and how to create that. And we have a lot of empty parking lots. We know that with the Lakeside Mall situation. So I think this is probably a good use of an empty piece of property. And hopefully Scooters is very successful, and we welcome them in Sterling Heights. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
All right, thank you, Mr. Yanez. Ms. Zarko?
Thank you, Mayor Taylor. This reminds me of the conversions that they did with the old, was it photomats that you used to drive through and drop your film off and then came back and maybe you don't remember that because you're young. But you used to drop your film off and then you would come back and you'd pick it up. It was like a little shack in a parking lot is what it was.
Film.
It was film, yeah.
Film, no digital.
Yeah, film, it was film.
Actual film.
So and then when photomats were no longer needed, they became drive-through coffee shops. So it's not unique. I mean, it's been someplace before, they've done this before. But is there a representative from Scooters? I guess I'd like some information as to where you're located. Is this one of the first ones in Michigan? What kind of research you did as far as picking or choosing this particular site? Is it the breakfast side of the street? Because we all know about the breakfast side of the street. So if you could answer those questions, I'd really appreciate it through the chair to the representative.
Thank you, I appreciate it. My name's Rob Allen. My wife Shane and I are the franchisees for Scooters. This will probably be our first location. So that was a 7-part question. So I might need you to back up a little bit. So one thing on the parking lot question from Mr. Russo, we do need a couple extra spots, as Chris had said, but a lot of people are going this way, and if, God forbid, Scooters would close, all the other coffee competition is moving to this model that we've done for over 25 years. So the founder of Scooters is from Omaha, Nebraska. They've done it for almost 30 years. They've never, knock on wood, they've never had one close or go out of business. So we feel like our track record is there. We do have a little differentiated model than others out there. We're a little faster, we're a little nicer, and we're locally owned, so hopefully that's a differentiator. What other question did you have that I can answer?
What kind of research you did in order to choose that particular location?
Sure. So we will be the second or third franchise open in the state of Michigan. There's one in Brighton that just opened a couple weeks ago. They're doing very well. There's one going to be in Commerce, and then we'll be the first in Macomb area. So my wife and I had the rights to 10 of these, and we chose this area first based on, the amount of landmass you had, the population, the local government, et cetera. So we kind of had carte blanche of almost all of the suburbs, and this was one of our first choices.
Okay, and then another question I have, will this be strictly beverages like coffees, teas, smoothies, no food?
There is food.
Okay.
Similar kind of quick bite menu items, breakfast sandwiches, smoothies, et cetera. But yeah, kind of similar to some of the competition you might know. But yeah, nice, fun, quick bites.
Okay, and it's strictly drive-through? So
Yes,
we have to
ma'am.
worry about capacity, okay. I wish you luck, I think it's different. The other thing is Mr. Yana has pretty much said it also, is we're gonna have to make some decisions with some of these parking lots, and this is an obvious, use for it that would benefit the community, so I wish you well.
Put 3 in Sterling Heights, so hopefully this first one goes very well and we can find other opportunities. We also have the rights to Rochester Hills, so maybe I'll run into you, Chris. Sorry, too soon. Too soon. Any other questions for me?
Yeah, we'll go through the rest of the council, and you should probably, I don't know if you want to hang out. Well, I'll give the floor to Mr. Radke, and we'll see if
If
you
you're done, Mrs. Arco.
Oh, yeah,
Oh, you know what, I think I am. If I think of something else, I'll ask for a second time.
absolutely. Mr. Radke.
Thank you. You can sit down for a second.
Don't go far.
Don't go far. I am totally and utterly against this project. I think that this defeats the purpose of the zoning ordinance. And it's a bastardization of the zoning ordinance to say that it's a mixed use, so we can add a parking lot business like this into what we envision as a future mixed-use district. Because if it is successful, like he specifies, we are now going to have an island of cars in what we hope to be a future pedestrian district. And there's no way in the backup material I read for pedestrians to access the site. So what is the point of having a mixed-use district if we create businesses that are opposite the district that we've created? It's almost spot zoning. It is diametrically opposed to the goals of the district. I'm sure it's a great coffee shop, but the idea that we're going to create an unsustainable, car-only development here is mind-blowing. And then on top of that, it's not even on the street like we envisioned with creating the mixed-use district. It's off the street. So it doesn't create a wall of businesses. It doesn't change the point of the Van Dyke district. And if it is there, it's now going to become an impediment to development around it. Because now you have a sea of cars, which are dangerous to pedestrians. And that was interesting. At the zoning meeting in our backup material, people asked about, well, could you put it to the street? It would be dangerous to pedestrians. The entire focus of the mixed-use district is pedestrians, but we're going to create a business that they openly state will be dangerous to pedestrians because of the turns in there. So it's mind-blowing to me that the Planning Commission even sought to send it to us. I just found it shocking. I'm just incredibly frustrated. So I guess through the chair to the owner of Scooters, or the future owner, why isn't the business directly on the street? That was part of the whole idea of the mixed-use district, is to place it upon the street so that people driving by can see it.
That's a little outside of my purview. I don't know why it was,
Why was it designed the way it is? Why isn't it on the street? That's what I'm curious about.
it's set back so that we can get the cars
Right.
roundabout through.
But there are drive-throughs where the business is directly on the street. There's a Dunkin' Donuts at 16 Mile and DeQuinder that has the street, it's directly on the street, on the sidewalk basically, and then the drive-through is through the outside. Why was this configuration chosen over other possible configurations which would help to enable a mixed-use district?
That's the designs that we've got from our civil, our architect, through
Right.
the city planners.
Okay.
I didn't know if it was up for discussion to move it closer.
Well, it was asked at the Planning Commission too, so I mean, it's not like it's a new question. I'm just trying
wasn't
to
at
figure it
that
out,
one.
yeah.
Okay.
is there a possibility that this could be not just a drive-through only facility? That's my biggest problem. If pedestrians could access it, if it was safe for pedestrians, if they could buy coffee or sit inside or sit outside, I'd be much more comfortable with it. Because I think a coffee shop on Van Dyke is a good idea. My problem is, in a future mixed-use district, you've now created an area that is antithetical to all the goals of that district. And while I think this concept could work, and drive-throughs are important, don't get me wrong, I understand that most businesses coming for us are asking for drive-throughs. But at the same time, our sister city to the left, to the west, Troy, they've enabled different businesses with this same concept on empty parking lots that envision all the goals that we talk about with our mixed-use district. So it's not like it's impossible to get this done. I just don't understand why we're doing it this way. So I appreciate your time. I'll be voting no. I'm frankly disgusted that this project came to us. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Radke. Council, anyone else?
Oh, yeah.
Mrs. Strowski?
Thank you.
Well, you can't say he doesn't tell you where he stands.
Yeah, it can be a little blunt. Thank you, Mayor Taylor.
Mrs. Strowski.
To our franchisee, I'm through the mayor to our franchisee, and I'm sorry, I don't know your name?
Mr. Allen.
Mr. Allen, thank you, Mr. Allen. I didn't write it down, and I have now written it down. So I am diametrically opposed to Mr. Radke, so I think this is excellent. I live right by this area. I am so excited to have a coffee shop where I can drive through, get my coffee, and go on my merry way. I do have a question for you, and this is somewhat in response to what Mr. Radke did say. Do you have an or is there a potential or an opportunity to provide outdoor seating? A couple of chairs, tables, is that even considered within your plan?
It's possible.
Okay.
It's not probable, it's possible.
Okay.
But we could go back to our plan, and we could probably potentially put a table outside to sit, to enjoy your coffee. You have spots to park on if you want to pull over and have coffee with a friend. It's possible we would look into it.
Okay, and I just say that as just an idea, certainly because this is an area, although this is not the North Van Dyke corridor where we do want to have a walkable district, or we are specific, no, it's not, because
It's an overlay district. It's what the point of it is.
Mr. Radke.
Mr. Radke, shh. It is not in the North Van Dyke district. I live much further south than that, and this is where this is. But this is definitely in an area that we can eventually consider changing. This is right by McDonald's, so this is certainly a drive-through area. I think this is an excellent plan. I do, that used to be my bank. It used to be Bank of Detroit, National Bank of Detroit, way in the day, where my bank was. And then it was Chase. Now it's some Blue Ox thing. But I do think that this is a great idea. I do. I think that I would love to, and I will be buying my coffee there if this goes through, honestly. I don't particularly like the other non-Michigan-based coffees. So I like to see these, I like to see parking lots redeveloped. That parking lot has definitely been an empty parking lot for many, many years. I think that this is an opportunity to revitalize that area. It is right next to a doctor's office. I don't think an office, which is what we're rezoning from to C3, I don't think another office there would do us any good. So rezoning that area is absolutely a better opportunity to change that area to be more useful and, for lack of a better term, better use of that property. So I am very much in favor of this. I thank you for your time, Mr. Allen. Thank you for the explanation and the openness of possibly putting, some outdoor seating out there, especially with who knows what other pandemic or something else might happen. Outdoor seating is obviously an opportunity to continue to allow us to safely gather. So I appreciate that. Thank you, Mayor Taylor.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Strowski. Mrs. Schmidt.
Thank you, Mayor Taylor. Through the chair to Mr. McLeod. Mr. McLeod, you had mentioned that there is a cross connection to the south. So what I'm envisioning is kind of like how to get to Aldi's from Irving. Is that kind of how it is? Because you can go through a different someone else's parking lot to get to Aldi's?
Mr. McLeod.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So it's being set up for that. So we never hold a proposed development hostage to say that they have to go into that agreement with the property owner to the south unless it naturally happens. We will set up this site to provide for that cross connection. So when the site to the south eventually does some sort of modification or some sort of redevelopment, we will get the cross connection going the opposite way. So then they'll match up. So as you can see towards the bottom of the screen there, this is set up to connect to the south. And like I said, when that site to the south ultimately does something, we will require the cross connection. Like I said, unless they naturally say, we'll go ahead and do it now.
But we don't have to ask permission for that?
So right now, we've set up this side since they're in our development process. That's something we try to do whenever it's feasible and whenever it's logical. But like I said, when that site to the south comes in and let's say they want to expand or they want to redevelop themselves or they do a special land use or something, at that point, we can then trigger the requirement to get the cross connection coming up the other way.
Okay. And as far as the condos that are behind, and we have 2 drive-through speakers, are they positioned facing the condos or facing Van Dyke or?
So realistically, they, if you see the picture here.
Condos are up here.
Yeah, so the condos are to the east here. Again, you have a pretty significant green belt there. They'll be, the speaker box or the speaker area will be in that island as well as just to the left of that island that's in the drive-through. So they will be directed, I guess you would say, in a northeasterly direction. So, I mean, it'll be quite some distance. I mean, keeping in mind that's 40, I mean, it'll be probably almost 200 feet, probably just short of that to the property line. And then you go into the parking lot of the multiple family development, and then you get into the actual houses of the multiple family development. So it's going to be several hundred feet from those audio boxes before you hit residential.
So the median next to the 2 lanes, is that landscaped as well, or is that the big tree line that you showed us? This is the tree line here.
Yeah, there's trees through here too.
So is that more landscaping?
So I couldn't see exactly. So the area that the request to maintain existing green belt, so that strip through there will remain undisturbed.
Right.
Right now, that is existing tree line and green space. So not all of it's tree. You can see kind of the squiggly line, if you will. That denotes where tree line starts and stops. So that'll be maintained. Again, that's the request of the applicant. In our normal scenario, there would basically be a wall at the right-hand side of your screen there, that dark heavy line. There'd be a 6-foot masonry wall there, a 10-foot green belt, and then some trees every 30 feet planted in that green belt. They felt that, again, they're not pushing the development any further east than where it stands now. Right now, there's already an ATM, not that that's a noise-producing machine, but there's already a drive-through lane and an ATM in that location. But again, there won't be much new landscape, if you will, between the audio boxes and the site to the east. But again, I think the preservation of the existing area would be the key there.
Can I show you where I'm talking?
Absolutely, yeah.
That's what the speaker's going to be. Answer her question.
This right here. Aren't these the 2 drive-throughs?
Correct.
So this right here, is that additional?
That is additional landscaping, yes. Yeah.
Yes. So that's going to be additional buffer from the speakers.
Yeah, that'll be a lower level buffer, but yes, there will be landscaping there to help mitigate out noise, yep. And then
And-
obviously if cars are parked in those rear spots for employees or whatever the case is, that'll further block noise and so forth. And then obviously there's several new trees in that area as well, so.
Okay. And can you just explain, this is a contract rezoning. So with the contract rezoning, the petitioner has to offer us or conditions that they want to have, and we either accept it. We can't ask him for anything. However, if this property were to sell, the zoning stays the way it is, correct? I mean, that zoning stays with the property.
That's correct. So the conditional rezoning agreement that you have in your backup, if this was to move forward and ultimately get executed, runs with the property. So that is not only the conditions offered, the condition offered here is basically the site plan. So if this property was to transfer or ultimately be sold, the C3 zoning would stay, both sites, and then, but they would be subject to this site plan. So if they wanted to change this site plan, depending on the severity of the change, it would either be done administratively in terms of the change. Let's say they were doing a facade change or something, that would probably be done administratively. If they were looking to revitalize or redo the site, in either instance, either the scooter site or the Blue Ox site, they would most likely, at a minimum, be back in front of you, if not all the way back before the Planning Commission to revise that conditional rezoning agreement.
Okay. And then a couple of questions to Mr. Allen, if you could. So Mrs. Sarowski had asked you about possible benches or whatever. However, in my backup at the Planning Commission, it was asked if you would have a walk-up window, and that was a no. So what you're talking about seating would be for people that came by car, went through the drive-through, and then parked, got out, and had some coffee.
Or walking by.
You'd allow them to walk by.
They can walk up to the drive-through?
So, yeah, sorry, yeah, so maybe someone bought the drink in their car and then somebody walked out.
Okay, okay. But
yes.
there is not going to be a walk-up window?
No.
Okay. Okay, I think I have no further questions. I am in favor of this. I think, you know what, we need to find out creative ways to utilize these empty parking spaces, and this is a high-traffic volume area, and I'm okay with it, so, thank you. I have nothing further, Mayor.
Thank you, Mrs. Schmidt. Mrs. Koski.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through the chair to Mr. McLeod. Would you put your picture back up again? The shared driveway with Blue Ox, I'm seeing that as basically the ingress and egress that's going to be used by that facility. Is that correct?
That is correct. Until any sort of additional cross-access occurs maybe to the south, the current driveway that comes to the south side of the Blue Ox facility would become the main driveway for scooters, yes.
Okay, so they will be coming in through that driveway and then heading south. And where is the drive-up window? How are they going to circle and come back out?
So as you described, so they would come onto the site through that driveway, head south in front of the building essentially, to the very south end of the site, and then turn to the east, traverse the south portion of the site, and then turn north to the ordering area, and then turn back west to head back towards Van Dyke. And the pickup window, or the window itself, the drive-through window, is on the north side of the building there, just before they re-enter the access drive that gets them onto the site. So they would basically have to do a full loop around the building to get through the drive-through in its entirety.
Is that going to cause any confusion or anything with the Blue Ox? Because basically that's their parking area, and you're going to have traffic coming in, going out.
So I think in terms of Blue Ox, not to speak for them, but I mean, they obviously are maintaining a decent number of parking spots immediately against their building. As you saw in the picture there, you know, Blue Ox is not a heavily traveled credit union. I mean, it's a credit union, so it's, and obviously with banking now, there's a lot of online activity. But with that being said, so once you get onto the scooter site itself, so that will be the one point where obviously someone has to make a decision. So when they come on to the overall site between the two buildings, they either essentially turn left to park for Blue Ox, or they would turn right to come onto the site for scooters. And then the scooters traffic pattern is totally internalized by the islands. So until they get their coffee and come back out to the Blue Ox site, there's really no interaction with the Blue Ox site other than that initial turn in and the ultimate turn out to get out of the site. So otherwise, it's completely internalized.
Okay, and if ever the cross connection to the south, that would be something later on with the business to the south.
Correct, unless, you know, we always request that the applicants during the development process, you know, speak to their neighbors when there's a situation like this to see if it can occur at this point. But again, we don't hold developments necessarily hostage because obviously that may put them at a disadvantage in terms of negotiations. But with that being said, you know, it's most likely going to occur at a later point. So, but again, we try to do that with all commercial sites, is try to ultimately get them interconnected, thereby reducing the number of conflict points, in this case out to Van Dyke, the potential incident for crash. You know, it's much easier if they can go from, if they need to stop at an office, directly to the south and then come to this site to get their coffee. And then if they do their banking, if they can do all that without going in and out of Van Dyke 2 or 3 different times, everyone's all the much safer.
Now, one other question, is this going to be split off into 2 parcels?
Yes, that is their intention, is that, I don't know if you can see it on there, there is a dotted line that kind of traverses the 2 sites going left to right on the screen there. That is a proposed split line. And so obviously all the necessary easements, if this was approved as we go through the site plan review process, the easements would need to be maintained. The conditional rezoning would go with both properties.
And they will do a shared driveway easement agreement that will be recorded along with splitting of the property, correct?
Correct. So as part of the site plan review process, that's when that split application, I would imagine, would come in. We would require that to occur before engineering approval. So again, as part of that, we would make sure all the necessary easements are in place. So by the time they ultimately get to final site plan approval and start construction, we would have all the cross access, all the cross driveway easements, any utility easements that needed to be crossing the sites if they were private. Obviously, if they're public, it's an automatic, but if they're private easements, for some reason, we'd get those easements as well. So again, by the time they put shovel in the ground, you know, that would all be taken care of and verified by the city's legal staff.
Okay, that's just an automatic administrative rule.
Correct, yep.
Okay.
Yep, so we do that all the time with different types of easements. And like I said, it's run through O'Reilly's office to make sure that obviously between engineering, planning, and legal, that all the easements are satisfactorily drafted and signed, and those ultimately get recorded with the property as well.
Okay, thank you very much.
Mrs. Zarko?
Thank you, Mayor Taylor. Just to clarify so that I understand this, and it's through the chair to Mr. McLeod. When you first were telling us about the actual site, did you say that there were 3 driveways for this particular frontage? Okay, and the one is being eliminated, and so it'll be like, I would think the middle one is the one they're going to share. But where is the other driveway located? Because I don't see it on the map.
Yep, so the other driveway, the third driveway that'll be maintained is all the way to the top of the screen. It's essentially the drive-through lane for Blue Ox. So if you look just to the north of the building,
gosh,
that's in the
okay.
very light gray, there's a drive-through lane that comes across the north of the site out on the Van Dyke. Obviously, Blue Ox needs that for their drive-through lane for completion because there's no circle around, so to speak. So if you go through their drive-through, that's the only way to get off the site. The third driveway that's being eliminated is all the way to the south end of this site.
Okay.
Basically, if you took the driveway that's on the south side of Scooters and just took it out to Van Dyke, that's essentially where the third driveway that's being eliminated is right now.
Okay. I just want to make sure that I had it, that there were still 2 driveways for the frontage. Okay, thank you.
Okay, so look, I understand Mr. Radke's concerns here, I do. I just think that I hate to deny a use here that, to me, makes sense, that there's a demand for a future that is uncertain. I'd love to see this a much more walkable, pedestrian-friendly corridor, but denying this tonight is not going to make that a reality. So I'm in support of it. I think you're going to have enough votes clearly to pass. So here's my question. And as I see it, you've got Dunkin' Donuts that has the best coffee in the area, okay? And I don't think that's really debatable. But I haven't had yours yet.
We can debate.
Okay? And then you have Bigby Coffee, which I think is very good. I like Bigby Coffee. Then I'd probably go with Starbucks, then maybe McDonald's, and then way down is Tim Hortons. Okay? It's not good, that Tim Hortons coffee. So where do you fit in the mix?
So we source all of our beans direct from farmers in Costa Rica, Guatemala, et cetera, just like a lot of the others. We're a premium coffee up there with other companies that will not be named, based on, where we source, how we source it, et cetera. I would love to have a taste test for the group at some point, specifically to you. I think I would change your opinion. I'm almost positive I'd change your opinion.
Well, I look forward to it. I do. Do you have a timeline for how long this is going to take to get up and running?
From the time we get approval to break ground, it's 12 weeks,
And then break ground to opening? Any estimate?
12 week, total, 12 weeks.
12 weeks.
Yeah,
Oh, wow.
we're efficient.
Very efficient.
In
And
delivery
this-
of coffee
even-
and
even now?
creating a building.
Even right now? You're going to get it done in 12 weeks? Okay.
That's what I've been told.
I will see you in 12 weeks. All right, sir, thank you very much. We appreciate you being here tonight. And Counselor,
all.
anything else? No further discussion. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Motion carries 6-1. Thank you. Congratulations. I guess we'll see you in 2 weeks, right?
With our coffee
Um,
in 12 weeks.
So no congratulations yet, but I think we're on the right track. All right, next item on our agenda tonight is an ordinance introduction. This is to consider introduction of a tax exemption ordinance providing for payment of service charges in lieu of real property taxes for the new Alkosh Apartments residential housing located at 2500 15 Mile Road. We do have a presentation from our Senior Economic Development Advisor, Luke Bonner. Mr. Bonner.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Mr. Vanderpool, members of council. This evening for your consideration is an introduction of a tax exemption ordinance that would allow for a payment in lieu of taxes for the new Alkosh Apartments residential housing development located at 2500 15 Mile Road. To provide some context in terms of location, the site is generally located between 14 and 15 Mile Road, east of DeQuinder. And if we zero in a little bit closer, it's generally at the corner, the southeast corner of 15 Mile Road and Ketson Drive. It's actually the property that is immediately east, adjacent and contiguous to the Holy Trinity Cemetery property. Here's the proposed site plan for the development. And representing the development this evening as well, who is available for questions, is the owner, Steve Abuna, Linda Couch-Verdura, who is the architect, and Bob Zinder, who's the development consultant. The site plan is scheduled to go to Planning Commission on September 14th for site plan review and also for a special approval land use, which I will get into in just a minute. Here are renderings of the development. This is considered Building 2. Building 2 is, let me just scroll back up here really quickly. Building 2 is the southern property, or the southern building on this property. It is two-story, which the two-story building is by right under the RM2 zoning. The materials here are durable materials, both metal, aluminum, brick, and stone product with varying elevations as well. Building 1, which is the northern building on the property, is three-story, which is what would require consideration for a special approval land use at Planning Commission. And then some more of the project details. The ownership is a qualified Michigan Limited Dividend Housing Association, which qualifies it to apply for low-income housing tax credits with the Michigan State Housing Development Authority. There are 48 residential units for low to moderate incomes. Building 1, as it mentions, 3 stories and has 29 units and is 32,000 square feet. Building 2 is 2 stories, has 19 units and is roughly 22,000 square feet. The pilot for consideration on the ordinance introduction is a payment in lieu of ad valorem property taxes. That pilot payment would be equal to, or what we are proposing is 10% of annual sheltered rents for the development. And accompanying that would be a municipal services agreement, which would be an additional $7,500 annually with a 2% annual increase. And as I mentioned, the applicant is also seeking a 9% low-income housing tax credit with MISTA. Their timeline is an October 1st application deadline. So the pilot introduction this evening for consideration would then be up for potential approval on September 20th. That, with their special approval land use and site plan approval, would go into their final application to MISTA for that October 1st deadline. So I'm here for questions. The city attorney, Mark Kaszubski, was also instrumental in putting together this evening's information, and the developer is here as well.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Bonner. Is there anyone in the audience who'd like to speak on this item? Mr. Nelson.
Ken Nelson, Firesteel Drive, Sterling Heights. Just asking about, this one snuck by me, and not too many of these PUDs or special land uses are sneaking by me nowadays, but it did. I didn't see anything in the briefing that Mr. Bonner just gave that had units, the number of units that are going to be charging X number of dollars for rent. I'm just wondering if he would go through all of that. And I also don't recall, prior to the Chaldean Foundation property on the North Van Dyke corridor, I'm getting good at that, was our first pilot program. There may have been others, but I remember that's our first pilot program. So this is our second. And I imagine there's going to be a PUD coming up here well, I'll talk about that during consent agenda. Just would like to know what the rents are and what qualified them for consideration for the pilot program. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Nelson. Anyone else on this item? If not, council, we need a motion.
Mayor Taylor.
Mrs. Zarko.
Let me get there. Resolved to introduce the City of Sterling Heights tax exemption ordinance providing for payment of service charges in lieu of real property taxes for the new Alkosh Apartments residential housing located at 2500 and 2440 15 Mile Road.
Support. Okay, it's been moved and supported. We have to make a change, though. There was an updated suggested action added to the packet late this afternoon.
It's in, okay, you want me to get to the, I have that one. I have it.
Is the address wrong? Is that what-
Yeah, the address
Okay.
was wrong.
I got it. I found it, yes.
So you want to withdraw your motion?
I'll withdraw my motion.
Okay, motion's been withdrawn. I'll give you the floor to make a new motion.
Okay, resolved to introduce the City of Sterling Heights tax exemption ordinance providing for payment of service charges in lieu of real property taxes for the new Alkosh Apartments residential housing located at 2500 15 Mile Road.
Support. It's been moved and supported. Any discussion, Mrs. Zarko?
I just have a couple of questions through to Mr. Bonner or to the petitioner. First of all, it's, I'm actually going to moderate a panel later in the month that has to do with housing in Michigan and the need for housing, and we don't have enough of it. And realistically, we should be providing about 75,000 applications to meet the need. And by the end of the year, the state will only have provided about 17,000, I believe. So certainly this is something that we need. We have other developers that have put in, apartments, but not necessarily, they're attainable housing, but maybe in some cases not affordable. So, I guess through the chair to whoever wants to answer my questions, would be this is income-based, so the cost of renting these would vary with the tenant, correct?
That's correct. And if the owner wants to come up and also address sort of what they're expecting from a resident standpoint, but these types of projects have an income-based approach in terms of the affordability of the units for a certain amount of income for the renter. The payment in lieu of taxes is very specific to the actual cost of the development itself, and then the ability to rent at a low enough rate for those low-income renters that it's lowering the overall cost of the project. And then they're also applying for that low-income housing tax credit to, again, just cover and reduce the overall expenses of the construction itself to make it affordable housing, if that's helpful.
It is helpful, because I think people have to understand the reason why it'll be a different type of tenant that is going to be eligible for this housing. So I think that's what's important to point out. I guess my other question is I've passed this site, I can't even tell you how many times. Is this all one parcel, or is this part of, there always was a sign there that said all 3 parcels had to be sold to the same person. Is this one parcel, or is this 3 parcels?
This is one parcel.
Just one parcel, so obviously they've decided that the good way to rent it is to separate them. Okay. I think this is something that we need. I think that, you know, we want people to be able to live and have their own home. We know that because of the scarcity of whether it be homes or apartments, it only means that the rents are going up, which means that families are depriving themselves of something else because they can't afford the rents. So I don't see a downside to this at all. And it looks like the way it's laid out, the 3 stories building is going to be closer to 15 Mile. The 2-story building, I believe, is to the south of that, if I'm reading the plan right.
That's correct.
Okay. So I think this is a good idea. I wish you luck, because we have had pilot programs before. Mr. Nelson, we had one before the Chaldean Foundation that was actually supposed to be on Red Run off of 14 Mile. And they didn't get the grant money that they needed in order to build the project. So we've had these before. So I think it's a need, and I wish you luck. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Zarko. Mr. Radke?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to echo my colleague, Ms. Zarko's comments. I completely agree with her. You know, we've had pilots in the city for decades. This is, I think, the 4th or 5th one I've seen since I've been on council, and that's in 5 years. One of them was a senior complex on Ryan Road that a former council member came and gave a presentation on. There are several others. The whole point of the pilot is to make it more affordable for people who already are working in the community to set down roots and live here. That's the point of the pilot. I reviewed these plans, and I think it's going to be actually a very high-quality development. I think people are going to be proud to live here. It's a bit of a challenging site, so it makes even more sense for the pilot, because otherwise it's almost, because of the way the drain moves over the property and the cemetery next door, it almost becomes a very difficult project to get off the ground. It's not a PUD, if I'm wrong. Through the chair to Mr. Bonner, is it a PUD?
No, so the underlying zoning is RM2, which allows for 2-story residential. It would be a special approval land use for that additional story on building 1 closer to 15 Mile Road.
Right.
That would be under consideration of Planning Commission.
I think this is going to be an excellent project. I think we need to make space for everyone to live in Sterling Heights. The reason the rents are rising so swiftly is because we don't have enough housing units. The Great Recession led to that. I didn't know that the numbers were as stark as Mrs. Zarko mentioned, but I believe it, because almost every person who comes to us now is asking about housing, how we can house the people. And if we want our community to keep on growing, we have to find places. These folks are already going to be working in Sterling Heights. Let's make sure that they can live near where they work and really benefit from our city. So I will be supporting this. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Radke. Anyone else, council? Mrs. Sarowski.
Thank you, Mayor Taylor. So I'm just going to echo very briefly my colleagues' sentiments as well. I do agree that we need housing, and especially affordable housing, better affordable housing than what we currently have even. And so I am happy to see that we have a project that looks good and beneficial to our residents who need this. I am very happy to support this. I love that this is a pilot project and it can be based on need and ability to pay. Ability to pay is a very much more equitable way to set the rents. Some of the rents and affordable rents are not affordable for a lot of people with their lower incomes. So thank you very much for putting it that way. And I have pretty much no other comments other than good luck and thank you. Thank you, Mayor Taylor.
Thank you, Ms. Rowski.
Mayor Taylor?
Mrs. Schmidt.
Thank you. Through the chair to Mr. Bonner, so I'm looking at the layouts, and just to clarify, the south end of the buildings that abut residential, there are no balconies or patios on those second stories? I think it's a side, but I just want to,
So essentially, the south elevation does have a little bit of a,
Couple of them.
like, I'm
this is
drawing a blank on
building
the
one. I'm talking
terminology
about the
for it.
two-story.
We'll call it a punch-out, for lack of a better term. But there are no exterior patios proposed, at least from a rendering standpoint. But there is the enclosed balcony on a portion of that southern-facing elevation.
But building one is the farther north building. I'm talking about building two.
They're essentially the same.
The same.
They are the same, okay. Okay, and then just one question through the chair to the petitioner. If I could have you come up, please. Thank you. And your name?
Name is Bob Zinzer, and I'm the development consultant representing the owner.
Okay, Mr. Zinzer, can you tell me, these are low to moderate income residents or tenants that you're looking for. Are they going to be open to everyone that falls into that category, or are there any other qualifications or requirements?
Well, they're open to individuals that meet the area median income levels that the project has set. MISTA requires that we have varying levels of AMI in order to accommodate various income levels. So we have 13 units at the 30% area median income level. We have 3 at the 40% area median income level, and we have 32 at the 60% area median income level. 60% is the highest AMI individual that could live in the apartment,
But it's solely based on that?
solely based on that.
Okay, thank you. I have nothing further. I'm good.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Schmidt. Anyone else? With no further discussion, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Zinzer and Mr. Bonner, for that presentation. Next item on our agenda is an ordinance adoption, and this is to consider adoption of an ordinance amending Chapter 29 of the City Code of Ordinances to create a business licensing fee exemption for charitable organizations. Is there anyone in the audience who'd like to speak on this item? If not, council, we need a motion.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Yanez.
resolved to adopt the ordinance amending Chapter 29 of the City Code of Ordinances to create business licensing fee exemption for charitable organizations.
Support.
It's been moved and supported. Any discussion?
I think we discussed it enough the last meeting, and no further discussion needed.
Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Radke.
I just want to add that while I will be voting for this, we should abolish the business licensing ordinance completely. We shouldn't have to force businesses to pay a tax essentially for existing in Sterling Heights. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Radke. Anyone else? No further discussion. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next item is to consider adoption of an ordinance amending Article 3 of the Chapter 51 of the City Code of Ordinances to update the process for obtaining a tree removal permit and the standards for tree replacement. Is there anyone in the audience who'd like to speak on this item? If not, council, we need a motion.
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Radke.
Resolved to adopt the ordinance amending Article 3 of Chapter 51 of the City Code of Ordinances to update the process for obtaining a tree removal permit and the standards for tree replacement.
Support. It's been moved and supported. Any discussion, Mr. Radke?
Briefly, Mr. Mayor. I fully support these changes. I do not think they go far enough. I think we really need to consider protecting landmark trees on all parcels in the city. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Radke. Council, anyone else? No further discussion. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next up is the consent agenda. Anyone in the audience that would like to speak on any item on tonight's consent agenda? Start with you, Mr. Nelson.
Ken Nelson, Fire Steel Drive, Sterling Heights. Like to speak on item M, to set the public hearing for the application on behalf of ARH Land Holdings LLC for residential, my favorite, planned unit development on approximately 5.6 acres. There's a growing number of residents not supporting Sterling Heights' interpretation of the planned unit development. Growing number. It happens every time. This is going to be my third one. We're just a prime example. We're trying to put this whole property, we're trying to fit into about 40% of what's required by the city right now. This can't continue to happen. The other thing is, you're looking at a project that is going to give 28 micro apartments, 308 square feet. I was sitting there looking at my TV in my family room. My family room is little larger than that, but I'm going, you're going to put a family into a micro unit? This is craziness. How low can we go? 308 square feet. So I'm just doing this to announce to the people that want to be out about the new PUD that's coming to town. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Nelson. Anyone else on the consent agenda? If not, council, we need a motion.
Mr. Mayor,
Mrs. Koski.
move to approve the consent agenda
Support.
as amended.
Support.
Excuse me, as presented.
Motion is to approve the consent agenda. It's been supported with no discussion. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next up tonight is a consideration item. This is to consider approval of a collective bargaining agreement and memorandums of understanding between the City of Sterling Heights and Local 1557 of the International Association of Firefighters for the period of July 1st, 2022 to June 30th, 2025. Presentation from our city manager, Mark Vanderpool. Mr. Vanderpool.
Thank you very much, Mayor. As you noted, excuse me, this is an agreement between the fire union and the city. It's a 3-year agreement. Their current agreement expired on July 1. This will go through June 30th of 2025. It's similar to the other CBAs that have been before City Council, but I'll briefly review the key provisions in the agreement. First, with respect to wage increases, for the first year, there'll be a 2%, second year, 2.5%, third year, 3%. I think most would agree in light of today's labor market that those are reasonable increases. In addition to enhanced recruitment efforts, the new wage scale has been modified to increase the starting pay for new firefighters. So that will increase to $54,249. Like so many other industries across the marketplace, we are struggling to recruit a wide pool of candidates for firefighting and other municipal positions as well. So this is absolutely critical. Members working for the city as of September 2022 will receive a one-time supplement to salary and wages in the amount of $1,000 for hazardous pay in recognition of their job performance during the public health crisis created by COVID-19. I think this goes without saying. Our EMS personnel worked incredibly hard, especially with our vaccination centers and all that they did to push out vaccinations to the community and even beyond Sterling Heights. Members hired after January 2nd, 2013 shall have a 2.5% multiplier applicable to earned service from their date of hire. The current multiplier is 2%. This is still below the 2.8% multiplier that some of the firefighters have that are grandfathered in. We thought this was critically important too, again, for recruitment efforts also. we felt we were falling behind other communities, and it was, again, hard to compete with those that had already offered this. So this was critically important. But what's important to also mention is that this increased benefit, although it's not back to where it was in the old days, is being offset by an increased contribution by not only those that are eligible for the benefit, but for all firefighters in the union. So instead of contributing 8%, they'll be contributing 10%. So that helps make this almost entirely cost neutral. Members hired between July 1st, 2007 and January 2nd, 2013 will see an increase in their post-employment health plan accounts by $1,000. So the city contribution will increase from $2,000 to $3,000. These members are responsible for 50% of their retiree health care. So even going up $1,000, the city is still saving millions of dollars in actuarial costs by having these employees still pay 50% of their retiree health care. And all members contributing to their HSA, their health savings account, will be eligible for a matching contribution from the city. I emphasize matching because they have to contribute this amount in order to get it. And that will be $600. So the city will contribute $600 if the employee contributes $600. So that's an important benefit to note. In addition, along the lines of encouraging higher education, we're trying to do this with all of our employees and looking for incentives to do that. Members holding higher education degrees will receive an increase in the educational allowance. So, for example, a member with an associate's degree will see an allowance of increasing by $300 to $600 per year. A member with a bachelor's degree will see an increase of $500 going up to $1,000. And finally, a new educational allowance is available to members holding a master's degree, and that will be in the amount of $1,500. In addition, we're increasing the higher education assistance program, so that will go from $1,000 to $3,000. And for someone pursuing a master's degree, that will go up to $4,000. So again, the idea here is to encourage our firefighters and EMS personnel to pursue higher education degrees, and we're also working on that with all of our employees. Members working in the suppression division, these are 56-hour employees, will receive an additional 24 hours of holiday pay. So that they get their holiday pay 2 times throughout the year. So this is the equivalent of 1 additional holiday that they'll be getting. The base medical and hospitalization pay remains the same. That is $1,200 for a single person toward their high deductible plan and $2,400 for a 2-person or family toward their high deductible plan. And also the high deductible plan is the plan that they will take into retirement, which is significant. That does save us millions of dollars as well into retirement. All the other monetary benefits of the plan remain the same. These are simply the noteworthy improvements. And I did want to acknowledge the great professionalism we had working through the fire union, with the fire union leadership, getting the agreement ratified to the point it is before the city council tonight. And also, I wanted to thank our assistant city manager, Mr. Jeff Bahorsky. He works very hard on the collective bargaining agreements along with our labor attorneys, and it produced a mutually beneficial agreement that's before you tonight. So with all the above in mind, I respectfully request that the mayor and city council approve the new CBA.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Vanderpool. Is there anyone in the audience who'd like to speak on this item? If not, council, you need a motion?
Mayor Taylor?
Mrs. Schmidt.
Resolve to approve the collective bargaining agreement and memorandums of understanding between the City of Sterling Heights and Local 1557 of the International Association of Firefighters for the period of July 1st, 2022 to June 30th, 2025, and authorize the mayor and city clerk to sign all documents in conjunction with this approval.
Support.
It's been moved and supported. Any discussion, Mrs. Schmidt?
Just briefly, I would like to thank city administration as well as the members of 1557 for working together and getting this contract done. I think it's fair and equitable, and I appreciate everybody's hard work and cooperation. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Schmidt. Council, anyone? Mrs. Zarko?
Mayor Taylor, and I have to agree with Mrs. Schmidt. I want to thank everybody that was involved here because it's really great when these agreements come to us for approval. But I do have one question. So through the chair to Mr. Vanderpool, you mentioned the different step-ups for the bachelor's degree, master's. Is there a provision for a PhD? And the reason why I ask is I think we have one firefighter that is within like one class of having his PhD.
Mr. Vanderpool?
That individual, Councilwoman Zarko, would be eligible for the 1,500, which doesn't currently exist. So at least there would be some monetary benefit there.
Okay, thank you.
Council, anyone else? Mr. Yanez? Nothing?
I have one contract that I'm concerned about, and it's the one I retired under.
Well, look, we all have to be concerned about this one. The police department got some love tonight from me and other council members. I just want to say something real quick. The other day I was here for my office hours on Thursday mornings. I'm here, and I was stepping out, and a gentleman stopped me, and he wasn't here to see me. He was just walking through the hallway, and he relayed a story that he was here at he was across the street at Music in the Park earlier this summer when he started having a medical episode. He, without going into great detail, he was transported to the hospital by the fire department. He was having an episode in the park. We have our fire department there every night at our Music in the Park. They were able to jump in right away, start providing life-saving services to this man, get him to the hospital, and in his words, because of the work that was done by members of our fire department, he believes his life was saved. And every second counted in that incident, and he wanted me to pass along those words to our fire department, which I have, and I will right now again. They do heroes work, and we are as lucky as we are to have our police department. We're equally lucky with the fire department we have. I don't think that there are many cities across the state or even country that can say that they have such fine service out of both their police and fire department. So to the men and women of the fire department, we thank you for coming to the table and for your continued service to the city of Sterling Heights. I think this is a fair agreement, and very happy to have all of you in our employ. So council, with no further discussion, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next up tonight is to consider a nomination to the City of Sterling Heights Zoning Board of Appeals. Is there anyone in the audience who'd like to speak on this item? If not, council, need a motion?
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Yanez.
stand by for just a second. This is for the
Here.
beautification.
This is for the
Nominate.
zoning board.
Okay.
Zoning Board.
Zoning Board. Resolve to nominate Mr. Ben Ancona for the consideration as an appointee to the Zoning Board of Appeals as an alternate member at the September 2022 regular city council meeting.
Support. It's been moved and supported. Any discussion, Mr. Yanez?
I want to thank Mrs. Yarko for allowing me to make that motion.
Okay, Mayor Taylor.
Mrs. Zarko.
Okay, a little bit of background on Mr. Ancona is he served at one time on our planning commission for many years, and he was noble enough that when his granddaughter was playing college softball, he said he didn't want to miss meetings, so he stepped down from the commission so he could devote his time to watching her play college softball. So he still wants to be involved in some of the city commissions. I think he's on maybe, I don't know, ordinance, or maybe he's going to resign when he takes this position. I don't know. But we know that he'll do a good job. Nothing further.
Council, anyone else? Yeah, I think he'll do a great job. Ben has been a member of our community that's, given back, and the voice of local football team, has served on the planning commission. 13 years ago this fall, he and I ran against each other, so to speak. Just couldn't ask for a better person and a great guy. Looking forward to having him back in one of the two big commissions here in Sterling Heights. So he certainly has my support, and with no further discussion, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next is to consider appointments to the City of Sterling Heights boards and commissions. Is there anyone in the audience who'd like to speak on this item? If not, council, we need a motion.
Take them one at a time, I
Yeah, you know what? Let's go, so I think we can do, I'm a little bit confused by the paperwork we have up
Arts
here.
Commission first, or?
But why don't we go with the Arts Commission first, then Citizens Advisory, and then Youth Advisory Board.
Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Radke.
Resolve to appoint Liz Vincent to the Arts Commission to a term ending June 30th, 2025. So the appointee meeting the qualifications set forth in Charter subsection 4.03, and taking the oath of office within 2 weeks.
Support.
Been moved and supported. Any discussion, Mr. Radke?
Yes, briefly, Mr. Mayor. I've known Liz since we were kids. We went to middle school and high school together. She currently serves on our OBA. She's an attorney like you, Mr. Mayor. She works on estates and wills. She's very interested in this. She listed as one of her top choices. I think she'd be a very valued member of the Arts Commission.
I agree. Thank you, Mr. Radke, for the appointment. Anyone else, council? No further discussion. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next is the Citizens Advisory Committee, CDBG. Is there anyone who'd like to make an appointment there?
Mayor Taylor,
Mrs.
I
Schmidt?
believe there's 2 appointments, correct? So 2,
No, just one.
I don't think so.
Just one.
it's a
Gave us 2
partial term.
candidates.
Okay. So resolve to appoint Juliana Hardeman to the Citizens Advisory Committee to a term ending June 30th, 2023, subject to the appointee meeting the qualifications set forth in Charter 4.03 and taking the oath of office within 2 weeks.
Support.
It's been moved and supported. Any discussion? No discussion. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next up is the Youth Advisory Board. There are 4 open positions. This is a council appointment to partial terms ending June 30th, 2023. We can take these, you can take them all together or one at a time, up to council's discretion. Is there anyone who'd like to make an appointment?
Mayor Taylor.
Mrs.
I
Zarko?
think we have 2 that we can, let me just get to my,
Gotta find them.
yeah, we gotta, okay.
I have it, Mrs. Zarko.
You have them? Perfect.
Mr. Radke?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Sorry, Mrs. Zarko.
That's okay.
Resolve to appoint Michael Binkowski and Peter Chu to the Youth Advisory Board to a term ending June 30th, 2023, subject to the appointees meeting the qualifications set forth in Charter subsection 4.03, taking the oath of office within 2 weeks.
Support.
It's been moved and supported. Any discussion?
Briefly, Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Radke?
I think that we continue to have just tremendous candidates. Both of the, one of the candidates attends Athens High School, the other Stevenson High School. They both have over 4.0s. They're going to make it a tremendous addition to our Youth Advisory Board. They should be congratulated.
I agree. Anyone else? No further discussion. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. I would entertain a motion to postpone the other 2 appointments to the October 4th, 2022 regular city council meeting.
So moved.
Support.
It's been moved and supported with no discussion. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And that completes that portion of our agenda tonight. We will move on to communications from citizens, starting with Mr. Inks.
Nathan Inc., Sterling Heights resident. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and good evening again to you, council and city administration. Just wanted to publicly thank and commend Chris McLeod for all of the hard work that he has done as city planner for the past several years. I've had the opportunity of working with him on 2 commissions that he is the liaison for, the Sustainability Commission and Planning Commission. Appreciate somebody who is a night owl like myself and responds to my 2 a.m. and 3 a.m. emails, so I'll miss that a little bit. And he's far too humble to say this, but the work that the Sustainability Commission has done over the past 2 years would not have been possible without him. So just wanted to thank and commend him and say Rochester Hills is lucky to have him.
Thank you, Mr. Inks. Anyone else under communications from citizens? Mr. Nelson?
Ken Nelson, Firesteel Drive, Sterling Heights. I am asking you, Mr. Vanderpool, if you can tell the residents, again, I know you had our finance director and everyone say what's going on with the water bills. But water bills, there's a lot of people that are getting water bills that they can't explain. And if you could, during your report, just give the answer on where people can go within DPW, within finance, to find out more about what's going on with their water bills. The other thing was, I'm glad that the boil water advisory is gone. I have questions on the number, I forget how many valves were served by Great Lakes Water Authority. And is there any treatment that is done by the city of Sterling Heights to our water before it reaches our homes after those valves? The reason is, as of late, my water smells like massive amounts of chemicals. And if you take a plastic bottle, but make it full with our city water, and then take one of the purified waters, you sit there and just whip on it. I'll just ask you to do that when you go home tonight. There is a terrible smell of that water. Now, I got one today that said, I'm always on conspiracy theories and everything else. No, I'm always on the safety of the residents. And the fact that we're still having to keep up our water pressure and maybe go through the testing that we do on our own to ensure that our residents are getting quality water, I would appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nelson. Anyone else? I'll take whichever one of you wants to go first. Okay. We don't bite.
I know. Tell us your name.
So my name's Tina Keene, and my address is 5157 Adair Street. And I'm here regarding the house across the street from mine. I live at 18 and a half in Mound area, and I've been there for 10 years. The house across the street from us is an Airbnb. So I have children. There's a lot of children in our neighborhood. It's kind of like a little cul-de-sac. And so the last couple of days, all the neighbors and I have been talking, and they kind of put me to it. So I went around, I got everyone's name and their signatures. We don't like it. It's all day, 3 different people, all week long, all hours of the day. I don't think it's safe. And I had called the city, and they had stated that there is no rules for Airbnb here in Sterling Heights. So I'm just bringing it to your attention that it's not a clean place. Like, this grass has been cut. This was the second time last week, and it's been going on since July. Like, it's been Airbnb since July. They put their garbage in the front of their the garage or on the side of the garage. They don't have anyone that comes and picks it up. Our neighbor who has a back issue, if he sees it, he goes and does it for them, which isn't good. And it's just, I just don't like the whole, I'm not lying, there's like 20 kids in our neighborhood, and they're little to like older. And my daughter runs across the street constantly. Like, I don't know who's doing this. I don't know if it's a pedophile. I have no idea, and I just want it safe, and I don't ever want it to come back that I can sit here and say, guess what, something happened and you guys weren't aware of it. So I just thought I could bring that to your attention. And I don't know if you want all the signatures and these maps, like, it's kind of crazy looking, but it just shows like all the highlight, this is our little cul-de-sac, and all these highlighted is everyone who signed who wants this to be done. So I don't know if you guys get that. I have no
If you
idea.
hand it to the clerk, she'll make
Okay.
sure we get a copy of it.
Oh, you can, it's a mess, I'm sorry.
If
I
you
literally
want-
did
I mean,
this
do
in
you
2 days.
mind leaving that for us,
Oh,
or do
you
you?
can have it.
Okay.
If you can read it.
You also,
Listen, you guys, I literally did this in like 3 days because everyone.
do you want to, there's a pen and paper there. Do you want to put your name, your phone number, your email address? Do you want us to reach out and contact you?
Yes, because
And-
everybody asks, like, Tina, when you find out, please make sure.
Yeah, put it there and give it, and the clerk will take it, and it
Okay.
won't be public or anything, but they'll
Okay.
share it with the city council, and
Okay.
if we want to reach out, we can call with more questions, okay?
That would be great.
All right.
And then she's been in the area, I've only been there 10 years. She's been there longer, so she will speak if that's okay.
That's okay. She gets her own 4 minutes.
It might be longer, but I hope not. My name's Linda Quainton, and my address is 41767 Hillview Drive. I'm here today to address the issue of the Airbnb at 5176 Adair Street. It was my old neighbor, Joyce Fitch, her house, turned into an Airbnb. I live on the corner of Hillview and Adair, and I have lived here for 38 years. When we have problems, it is our neighbors that come to help us out. When we had a house fire, it was our neighbors that took us in until we figured out what to do. It was our neighbors that put out the fire before the fire department came. It was our beloved neighbors that helped each other through tough times. Where does a B&B fit into all this? When the people first started to fix the house up, the trash was tossed out onto the front lawn. 3 neighbors, including myself, got flat tires from the nails in the glass that was thrown all over the street. Now there are strangers coming and going all hours of the day and night. My bedroom window backs up to the house, and I can hear car doors shut all hours of that night. The yard is poorly kept. It may look a little bit nice, but there are weeds growing underneath the trees, big ones. The backyard is a mess with tree branches all over it, and the trees are also falling apart. My grandkids have walked past that house to play with friends, Tina's. Then that makes me feel uneasy when they walk past and there's strangers out there. I have a pool that faces the front yard where the strangers come and go, and I don't like that. I know I could put a privacy fence up, but the garbage is sitting outside by the side of the garage all week. And I know there's a rat problem in Sterling Heights because my daughter works for KFC, and they just had to close down the Big Beaver store because it was infested with rats. The people that stay there don't care about our little world, and that is what it is. 2 cul-de-sacs that both enter and exit off of 18.5-mile road. No through streets. Most neighbors have lived there over 40 years. The trash will eventually start to attract rodents. DTE came out looking at the power lines behind the house, and they tried knocking on the door, and no one answered, even though there was a car there. What I'm trying to say is, we want our neighbors. We can know, not strangers coming and going all hours of the night. That's my concerns, and I'd like to know what we can or cannot do about it. We just don't feel safe. And she will be the one you contact because she's the one organizing all this. So I thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you very much, ma'am. Anyone else under communications? Mr. Zenoy?
Joe Znoy, 34330 Centennial Court, Sterling Heights. Good evening, City Council and Mayor. At the last City Council meeting, Mr. Yanez voiced concern over the fact that some citizens, in discussing the effects of rental development, used the word demographics. His insinuation was that this was some sinister code word used by folks who are bigots or racists. When I use the word demographics, I use it just as it's defined. That is, statistical data relating to the population and particular groups within it. In 2018, Chris Salviati, an economist for Apartment List, analyzed demographic data from the U.S. Census Bureau. He concluded that renters, who are more likely to struggle economically, have decidedly more progressive views on the economy than homeowners. His analysis also showed that renters vote for Democrats at a rate of more than 2 to 1. This council, unless I'm mistaken, is composed almost exclusively of Democrats or progressives. And while I do commend you for your humanitarian concerns with regard for providing rental housing, if I also suggest that you may be motivated to expand your voting base by expanding rental housing, I don't think I'm making a wholly unsupported claim. I have raised other concerns about how apartment complexes affect crime and the selling values of homes. And to support these views, I've used data from this city as well as scholarly research. Much of this is attached to the information packet for the Planning Commission's second meeting regarding the Sterling Landings 3 proposal. The bottom line is, I try not to make assertions without the backing of what some would consider inconvenient truths. But please, don't think I'm against renters or all new apartment proposals. My wife and I were renters for the first 2 years of our marriage. What I do rail against is unbridled development in inappropriate locations and what I perceive as the abuse of the planned unit development process that dilutes codes and standards to the detriment of the quality of life for renters. To conclude, let me tell you something in my background. In 2020, I retired from Children's Hospital of Michigan, where I worked as a registered nurse for 44 years, 21 on the burn unit and 23 years in same-day surgery. I've taken care of patients of every race, color, creed, and economic status, and I'd like to think I provided loving care to each and every one of them. While I absolutely have biases, I try to the best of my ability to let my outward behavior reflect the love of Jesus toward everyone. Admittedly, I know my blunt, straight talk has likely offended the sensibilities of some here, and for the times I may have overstepped the bounds of civility, let me apologize. In my 21 years on the burn unit, I learned firsthand that when that first layer of skin, the epidermis, is compromised, we're all the same color underneath. For anyone to imply that I'm a racist, a bigot, or find renters unworthy of human dignity is insulting. And I hope there will never come a day when we ban free speech or words like demographics from our public discourse. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Zanoy. Anyone else? Ms. Wright?
Brandy Wright, Stratford Drive. I wanted to say, I emailed Chris, to tell him what I thought about his leaving. But I do want to say publicly, he has been amazing to work with. Anytime I had any questions or wanted any information, literally within an hour, he was, replying to that email and making sure I had what I needed. So we are definitely going to miss him, and I hope Rochester Hills knows what they're getting and how amazing he is and how great he is going to be for that city. I also do want to just let you know, if you are hoping that renters will boost your chances at reelection, they actually only vote in local elections 49% compared to homeowners at 67%. So please, don't hold renters to high regard in that effect. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Ms. Wright. Well, you're the last one, Mr. Russo.
Yes, sir. Save the best for last.
We've missed you.
Have you?
No, I mean, yeah, we haven't seen you in a long time. It's good to see you
I
today.
shouldn't have to come here, but it's always inevitable. A few years back, Julio, they're gonna resurface Mound Road, and it's gonna be beautiful, everything's good. So we get punished through that whole thing with businesses all up and down Mound Road. And it turns out really nice. We get back on our feet, we get traffic flowing again. What do? We get a pandemic for 2 years and beats the hell out of every business along there, including mine. And actually, I did all right because it was an outside walk up to the window, but people took a beating. One of them is a restaurant that's been around, and all the police and the firemen and everybody goes there, the Old House Cafe, everybody knows. A young girl bought the place, and single mom, and she's been battling the whole road situation. You turn right around. Instead of waiting till that road got bad, we went ahead and did this project, okay? I'm sure it's because of the financing that was involved in getting, because it was already written in stone. So you gave us these numbers, you gave us these people to contact. We were all supposed to be part of it. We put our input in, they took it, threw it in the garbage, and that was it. So now we battle. We battled the whole way through the whole thing. It's not your fault. It's not the engineer's faults. They did the best they could do with all of it. But the companies that you got, because of the way you have to hire and give everybody a chance of being part of it, you have all these conflicting companies beating each other up. So now you got Dan's, you got Ajax, you got this one and that one. You don't know who you're talking to, okay? One does the rocks, the other one does the pavement, one does the concrete, one has the sidewalks, another company, I mean, it was a total disaster. So you destroyed this road, you put in a new road, and the whole time we've taken a beating. I had to sit there and monitor every step of the way to have access for my customers. I shouldn't have had to do that. You never put a sign up. You never said, hey, there's a construction. They couldn't put barrels. They put those long tubes. You guys knew there was going to be issues, but nobody did anything about it because you gave them the responsibility to handle it, whatever way they could do it. Now what we got, we're trying to generate business. We're trying to direct people where we're at. I pay a ton of money for an exit sign on M59. They come to the top of to the intersection at Dobry and Mound Road. They don't know where to go. They don't know where to turn. They don't know what's going on. I've sat down and had them come down there, and while we're doing that, a car's coming across the new road that's not even open. Another lady, an elderly lady, comes every day, got in the turnaround, and was backing up and going forward and backing up. We had one go inside the lane that wasn't finished and got trapped into the metal pieces in there. It's been a nightmare. And then we try to generate some attention where we're at with some flags and all that stuff. And we can't do it. We can't do it with the flags because my friendly Patrick Willis is going to single us out and
All right, Mr. Russo.
take my business and other ones along with me. Now,
Okay,
we were
Mr.
allowed to do
Russo. Close that portion and move on to reports from city administration. Mr. Vanderpool.
Mayor, I can respond to a few comments that came up tonight. First of all, just a quick comment on micro apartments. There is a significant demand for micro apartments, And any sort of housing opportunity is often a good thing for a community, especially a community like Sterling Heights that is highly desired. The idea with providing a wide variety of housing, including rental, is people then have a place to move up in the community as well. So a lot of times when you have multifamily opportunities, those individuals often will want to move into single-family housing or other housing available in the city. So having those various options is critically important, especially micro apartments as well. So I know that's going to come forward, and there'll be some discussion on it, but it certainly is something unique and something in demand in Sterling Heights for those who want to live here and also move up to other housing in Sterling Heights as well. Regarding the Airbnbs in the city, certainly we do have some Airbnbs, although I have not heard many complaints about it. This is obviously a situation that is not acceptable in terms of this individual house, and we're going to look into it on a deer. But what I will say is that property owners do have the ability to rent their property. We certainly have that occur. There are numerous single-family rentals throughout the city. In some cases, they have lost their principal residential exemption, so that's treated as rental property. We have an inspection program for those. So the first thing we're going to do is figure out if this is an exempt home or not. Or whether or not it's just a homeowner that periodically rents out through Airbnb or possibly some other means. You know, they may rent it individually that we don't even know about for a month or two during the year, not through Airbnb. So here's the point I want to make, though. If there are violations such as long grass, garbage that's not being set out properly, loud music, or the like, property maintenance code violations, doesn't matter if it's a rental, doesn't matter if it's Airbnb, they still have to follow those rules. So we will inspect this property, we'll make sure that they're complying with all of our municipal codes, and if they're not, the property owner will suffer the consequences. And we're out inspecting hundreds of properties every day. We're going to add this to the list. We'll be out in short order. I'm confident that we're going to correct the problems that the residents who spoke tonight are having with this property. There was an individual, Mr. Nelson, that inquired about water bills. You can go to our website. It's right on the main banner. You can click on the banner and find the FAQ, frequently asked questions, and you can learn about why the city has implemented monthly water billing, what the new technology offers to residents, and also Q&A regarding the meter replacement program as well. It's all on our website. It's been widely publicized. Residents have received flyers in their water bills, and we've been talking about this for at least a couple of years, but we're also happy to address any emails or phone calls that residents may have as well. I also wanted to highlight, Mr. Zenoy, regarding the effect of multifamily housing units on residential units. I want to call to attention once again, I report on this every year in March. Sterling Heights is consistently ranked in the top 5 statewide as having the highest residential property values of communities our size, and we'll continue to report on that. That ranking is very solid. I don't see it slipping at all. There's no evidence of it slipping with some of the recent multifamily units that have been approved. So I just wanted to call that out and hope that people look for that analysis every year. I think it's insightful. I wanted to draw some attention to about Mr. Russo's concern about signage and exposure. We certainly do want to do all that we can to help businesses in the pandemic. We developed the Inside Out program. That program is still, in essence, operational. Businesses, especially restaurants, can expand their patio space, can develop outdoor patio space that they weren't able to do before the pandemic. And we're still working with restaurants to be able to do that now. In addition, the city was able to implement millions of dollars in grants to small businesses across the city that I think help. In addition, we allowed unique signage, temporary signage that businesses could put out that normally wasn't allowed either. And in construction cases like this, we certainly allow temporary signage. We just haven't had the opportunity or the request from Mr. Russo to do that. But what I wanted to draw attention to is the screen, because I think this is important. We've been working with Mr. Russo on this issue for years. It started well before the pandemic. Mr. Russo and I have had countless conversations on this, numerous meetings over this, at least since 2015. But let me just mention festoon signs, because they are clearly not allowed in the city of Sterling Heights unless city council changes the ordinance. So this is what our ordinance reads in terms of prohibited signs. There's many other prohibited signs, but this focuses on festoon signs. I'll skip the definition. I think we all know what it is, but they're simply not allowed. If they were allowed, we wouldn't be having this conversation. And here's why they're not allowed in Sterling Heights. They're simply hard to regulate. Now, to some, this may not look bad, but to many, this is not desirable. When you allow festoon signs in your commercial corridors, you have to allow them for all the businesses. You can't single out businesses like Mr. Russo. I wish we could, but we simply can't. And I think most would agree this is a situation that we probably don't want to have in Sterling Heights. And here's a picture of Mr. Russo's signs. You know, again, these are not allowed in Sterling Heights. And not only are they not allowed, they're not in good condition. They're tattered, they're faded, they're torn. Simply, again, not a look. These are signs or banners or festoon signs that have been put out not during the pandemic, not during the Mountain Road construction, but were put out years ago. And thousands of businesses across the city put up permanent signage. This is the signage that businesses put up. This is just one small example. This is an option for Mr. Russo. We offered to work with Mr. Russo, and if he was interested in seeking any variances through the ZBA, that we would work with him and do what we could to facilitate those and support and perhaps even recommend to the ZBA, which is not customarily something we would do. But again, there's examples of thousands of examples of businesses that have put up permanent signage across the city. Here's some public signage. It's not cheap. $11,000 is expensive, no question about it. But when you amortize these signs over 20, 30 years, their useful life, it becomes more affordable for businesses. And this is legal. This is what we do on public property. So I could go on, but the reality is, you know, we have to enforce our sign ordinance. We work with businesses as much as we can. And as I mentioned to Mr. Russo on the phone many times, including last week, we're happy to work with you in this case. We're happy to develop some temporary signage for you that is allowed in our sign ordinance for the duration of the Mountain Road project. So I'm happy if you want to give me a call. You have my cell phone. We talk regularly. Happy to review those ideas with you. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Vanderpool. Mr. Koszybski.
Nothing tonight, Mayor.
Okay, council reports, new business. Mrs. Sarowski.
I'll start this evening. Thank you, Mayor Taylor. So I would like to start off by wishing Mr. McLeod a very happy new job and new employment. It is with a sad heart, though, that I wish that I am doing that. We are going to definitely miss you. You have been the ultimate professional. I have had many, many residents tell me how wonderful it has been to deal with you throughout the years. You are always as I said, the ultimate professional. You help them. You, as even Mr. Russo has said, you're always there for our residents. You've always been there well for us and for our commissions, our council. Nothing has ever been hard to deal with you. You are never short-tempered, at least with us and the residents. You are always able to give us a very kind and very professional answer when we ask questions. So I want to thank you for that and wish you the best. And it is our loss in Rochester Hills gain, and I drive through Rochester Hills every day, so I will wave at you as I drive, and I appreciate all that you've done. So thank you, Chris. It's been a pleasure. And then just want to thank the residents. It has been a challenge. My grass, with our watering, my grass is still not in the best condition, even though we have had some rain. It is no fun to see it in its little patchy brown condition, but I want to thank the residents for continuing not to water their grass and to continue to save our water to keep our pressure up. It is just an additional measure that we are doing to continue to keep the pressure at the highest that we can. We never had, we only had a very short couple hours of a boil water advisory. It was because we did not know at the time what we were going to have to do with our water until we had a very clear indication of where the water main break was affecting and who it was affecting. But I do want to thank the residents for being patient and understanding that this is just to continue to maintain the best water quality that we can. So I thank you for all of that. I know your lawns are suffering, certainly mine is, so again, thank you all. And you still can water your plants, but just very gently so that you're not soaking their grass. And that's really all I have. Thank you for a wonderful summer and the music in the park, and we will see you all throughout the rest of the year in the parks, just enjoying them. And that's all I have, Mayor. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mrs. Sarowski. Mrs. Schmidt.
Mayor Taylor, thank you. I'd first of all like to start out congratulating Mr. McLeod. It truly is our loss. You've always been available and not getting frustrated when I have questions over and over and over again. And I truly appreciate it. As all of us have heard feedback from not only developers but residents on how awesome you are and to deal with, and how you made Sterling Heights a better place. And I thank you for that. And I really and truly sincerely wish you well. And I'm sorry to see you go. I also wanted to bring up the fact that schools are back in business, and with that comes school buses. And I just want everyone to be cognizant of the light system on those school buses and the stop signs that swing out, because we have a lot of kids and just want to keep everybody safe. We don't want the bus drivers having to do unsafe things for the kids. So I appreciate everybody's cooperation with our school kids. And finally, I would like to wish Mrs. Yarko a very happy birthday. Today is her birthday.
Oh, hey.
So happy birthday, Mrs. Yarko. And I have nothing further.
Thank you, Mrs. Schmidt.
No festival, no cake, you know.
Anyone else? Mrs.
Mayor Taylor,
Zarko?
yes.
Birthday girl.
Thank you, Mrs. Schmidt. Just a couple of things. First of all, I do want to also thank Mr. McLeod for all of his service to the city. If there was one fault that Mr. McLeod had, it was he didn't know how to say no. So it didn't matter who was calling, whether it be a council member or a resident or a developer. It did not matter, because they came first, and not necessarily in that order. Oh, but no, that was the one thing we could always count on you, is that you really did put your job before a lot of other things in your life. And I wish you well when you get to Rochester Hills. We know where you're at, and we know where you live. So you're not running away from us, but I do wish you the best. And it is our loss. And you can tell Mr. Visanko that we said hi too when you get there. My other question, I guess, would be to Mr. Vanderpool. Through the chair to Mr. Vanderpool, are we still doing water testing in homes that were built before, I think it's 1985? And if we are, would Mr. Nelson qualify to have his water tested?
Mr. Vanderpool.
Thank you, Mayor. Councilwoman Zarko, yes, we still do random testing. If we get a request from residents, we're happy to do that. We'd be happy to test your water. We send that out to a lab to be tested. And I should have mentioned, we go through exhaustive reporting with Eagle and various state agencies, and we've never fallen above any thresholds that require any sort of monitoring or unusual reporting. Our water levels, our water condition has always been very good. Of course, we're a member of the Great Lakes Water Authority. They provide chlorine and whatever treatments that are required. They do that, fluoride treatments and the like. The city doesn't do that. We simply purchase the water from Great Lakes Water Authority. We do maintain the distribution system throughout the city with our city employees and contractors. But in terms of the water treatment, the Great Lakes Water Authority is responsible for that. But we do handle all the water quality reporting with the state agencies that are required. And we publicize that report annually as well. So we'll make sure next time it comes out that we highlight it at a council meeting and that residents are well aware of the report and where they can find it.
And then one more question, through the chair. Are there signs available now that let motorists that are on Mound Road know that businesses are open during construction? I mean, universally, because in so many other areas where we have construction, I've noticed the signs. But right now, as I'm sitting here, I don't think there's any signs there. And if there's a way that we could request them for the duration of that project so that people know those businesses are open, I think would be helpful.
Ms. Randall?
Thank you, Councilwoman Zarko. It's a great idea. I'm not, there is a listserv that businesses and residents can go to for the latest information. But that is something we will address with the project coordinator, HNTB, and the county. The county does have complete jurisdiction over the project. HNTB is a project manager. But we do obviously have regular communication with them, daily communication with them. So I'll make sure that if there's an opportunity to enhance signage that's currently there and implement new signage, we'll certainly take a look at that.
Okay, thank you. Nothing further.
Anyone else? Mrs. Koski?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through the chair to Mr. McLeod, we're going to miss you terribly because you have been a great help to, I think, all of us. And I'm not happy that Rochester Hills took you from us, but I know that you will do well there, and I wish you the very best. And you're welcome to come back and say hi anytime you want. So good luck to you. And did Mr. Vyzenko encourage you to come? Don't throw him under the bus. Well, you can tell him that we miss him too. So good luck to you, and I hope that you have a good future with them. And also, I would like to add, happy birthday, Barb. You got my
Yes.
I did
email
get
this
your, yes, I did.
And I have to always remember your birthday because it's my daughter-in-law's birthday too, so happy birthday.
Thank you.
So,
Thank you, Ms. Koski. Mr. Radke?
Sure. Very quickly, Chris, you're going to be missed here. Our loss is obviously Rochester Hills' gain. They're going to realize what a value they have with you over there. I appreciate all your hard work here in the city and for those times when you would answer my questions over and over again. I know I must have driven you crazy. So I appreciate all your hard work, and you will be missed here. Hard to replace. I can't even think about what we're going to do without you here. Next, I want to just briefly touch on Mound Road. Mr. Vanderpool reiterated it, but we have no control over that project. That was brought even clearer to us when we got gypped out of about $500,000 worth of sidewalk, and they kind of held it over our heads that they were going to pull the money if we didn't approve the sidewalk didn't approve the project without the sidewalk that we were promised. So I urge everyone to contact the county executive, Mark Hackle, in his office, and ask why we don't have $500,000 worth of sidewalk, why construction has been run so poorly, and why our business owners are suffering due to their project. Because at the end of the day, the buck stops with the county executive. I wish we had more control over our local roads like even our county roads like Mound Road, because I guarantee you if it was a Sterling Heights project, it would be done much better. And finally, I just wanted to briefly touch upon my plan for reshaping our zoning districts. You know, I talked about this at strategic planning. I had hoped that we would readdress it. It's in the last several meetings, it's become ever more apparent that we really do need to take a strong look at our zoning map so that our ideas conform with the reality on the ground. Because yet again today, we had an overlay district which is the problem with the overlay districts, is that they don't ever force anything, so then anything can come in there. And what we should do is just rezone the entire thing, because our master plan does not comport with our zoning map. Another example, the Shaner development was an example, this is an example, I think this was the fourth one where what we want to do does not comport with our zoning map and our master plan. It needs to get addressed, it'll continue to be a problem, we'll continue to have situations like the one today, because they do not match and they do not make sense. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Yanez?
Well, Mr. Mayor, I don't want to seem cold-hearted and not be the only guy to thank Chris McCloud for working here. I will say that I had a few private words with Mr. McCloud before the meeting started, and I said what I had to say to him, and as you can imagine, it pretty much reflects what everybody else had to say here tonight. He did have one request to me, that I asked the mayor to keep his remarks short because he wants to go home and watch Hard Knocks, Detroit Lions at 10 o'clock. That's not true. But anyways, I had a few words with Mr. McCloud, and he knows how I feel about his performance here and his leaving, and those are going to be difficult shoes to fill. Notice I didn't say big shoes, because frankly, she knows where you live. I have no idea what size your feet are. So I'm not going to say big shoes, you're just difficult shoes to fill. So thank you, Chris, for your work here on behalf of the citizens of Sterling Heights. Through the chair to Mr. Vanderpool. Mr. Vanderpool, remind me how much longer the contract is for our trash hauler, refuse collector?
Mr. Vanderpool?
Thank you, Mayor. Councilman Yanez, I believe it is 2024, but I'll have to confirm that with you, but I believe that's the case. So we got about a year and a half. We're going to be we'll be talking about that scope of service very soon. We'll be talking about performance standards and so on and so forth. So I'll verify that with you, but I'm 90% certain that's the case.
Okay, because I'm very concerned with, some of the performance, that we get. Obviously, they have a very difficult job. They're asked to move very quickly throughout the city. I am concerned about some safety protocols that I think probably should be followed by the employees that aren't being followed, and certainly a number of concerns that the residents have passed along. I'm very concerned about that as well. So I look forward to, having those discussions with GFL and anybody else who wants to bid on any future contract with the city. And then last but not least, I do want to make one comment about the 300 square foot apartments. I said the same thing. 300 square, who's going to want to live in a 300 square foot apartment? And I think about when you go to IKEA and they have those rooms set up and they got one room that's like 310 square feet. But a friend of mine who works with seniors reminded me that there are a lot of seniors out there, and she actually works at a complex that has some apartments of those size. There are a lot of seniors on fixed income that if they didn't have a 300 square foot apartment, they're not sure where they'd be living. And I also thought about my time at the fire department responding to calls in assisted living homes. Those assisted living rooms that people are living in, yeah, it's a big facility that they can walk out their door and maybe walk out to a common area, but they basically live in a 300 square foot room. No guarantees that we're going to support a PUD that has 300 square foot apartments, but I do think that this is something that we need to take very seriously. And when this comes to us, and think about, who would rent these apartments and the reason why they'd rent them. So I think that's it. There was something else I had in mind, but I didn't write it down, so we can still make it home by 10 o'clock.
Well, Mr. McCloud, I have told you my feelings. I appreciate your service to the city of Sterling Heights. I won't go over it again. Thank you, and we wish you nothing but the best in your continued planning career, and thank you for everything you've done for Sterling Heights. So with that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Support.
It's been moved and supported. With no discussion, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, motion carries. A very happy birthday to Mrs. Zarko.
Thank you.
And this meeting is adjourned.